The day is finally here. It's finally here, man. No more bullshit. Okay? No more. It's here. The start of the 2024 National Football League season is officially open. How you doing? Big sales. And I got to start it. Big sales, man. I love that. I got to give you a double dose because it is the start of the NFL season. You know, no more bullshit about 23, really. What you going to do today and tomorrow. Not what you did yesterday, what you're doing right now, preparing yourself for 24. The offseason is for straightening out the shit that went wrong in 23 and try to come to center and figure it out. I don't think, here, let's do this right out of the gate. What kind of offseason do you think the Philadelphia Eagles had? Give me a grade. What would be their offseason? When it came to, and I'll zero it in on rectifying the issues that they had last year that stopped them from being a Super Bowl contender. Compare it on that scale. How do you think, okay, they addressed last year this offseason? What would you say? Scale of 1, okay, you want to go grade? Dual go C+. It's kind of average or a little above average. Eduardo thinks they rectified everything and they're ready to roll. Optimism. Nothing wrong with that, Eduardo. And by the way, this is a question you're not really going to be wrong at because it's a personal observation of what you think the Eagles went through when it came to correcting some of the stuff that stopped them from being a Super Bowl contender. James Jones says, elite. We'll see. B-, C-. They didn't address the biggest problem. Dual threats talking, I'm thinking about Nick Sirianni. C-. Okay? I guess, hey, look, I got to tell you something about the Eagle fans. And by the way, there was a poll that just came out about Dallas Cowboy fans. They were asked if they think the Dallas Cowboys are going to win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years. You know what 85% of them said? No. No. Cowboy fans are starting to get to the realistic room, and they're starting to understand. They may win some ball games. They may look good doing it. But once it gets to the postseason, then the Cowboy fans have no faith in that organization. Can you imagine that? They're a really good regular season team. Really are. Baltimore's in that room too right now with Lamar. There's no difference between Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott. They're both failing in the postseason. Both failing. Hey, Sills, well, you know, Lamar plays Mahomes and Allen, and I get it. Roethlisberger played against Manning and Brady. He still won 2 Super Bowls. You don't get that hall pass. You know, I mean, hey, tougher quarterbacks? Well, if you're considered one of the tougher teams and one of the tougher quarterbacks, that's why you make the money. Okay? I mean, imagine that. 85% of Cowboy fans don't believe in the next 5 years the Dallas Cowboys are going to win a Super Bowl. Here's Arthur. Best off season in the NFL. What did you do, Arthur? You added Barkley and a guy who missed the entire season last year, and Gardner Johnson. Is that right? And then, of course, the draft picks. Is that what you're saying? I heard Bill Colarulo, Big Bill, say that he thinks this roster is better than last year because of the back end and the talent in the secondary. That's an over-the-top comment because I can't say if they're good or bad. And on this day, I don't know. I mean, he's giving them the benefit of the doubt. Okay. Some people do give people the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be good just because the Eagles drafted them or the Cowboys draft them or Minnesota drafts them. It's like saying, well, I'm giving the Denver Broncos the benefit of the doubt because they drafted Bo Nix Or I'm giving the benefit of the doubt because they drafted Drake May in New England. Really? Well, I'm not. I think you got to prove your shit first before you can start to get that equity. When you show up to training camp, NFL veterans, they don't give a shit what your name is, where you're drafted. They only care, can you play? That's a fan's thing. Bill's a fan. Nothing wrong with that. There is nothing. And by the way, it's not a rip, but he's a fan. Hey, I think we're better than a year ago. Why? Because we drafted players and addressed the needs. There's actually nothing wrong with that philosophy and thinking. You're assuming that the Eagles did their due diligence and got the right guys for the secondary. There's, like I said, there's no wrong answer here. I'm not ripping anybody. I personally don't give you the benefit of the doubt. I think you got to prove it first. I'm not here when it comes to, well, I'm going to say that those guys are going to be. I don't know that yet. I got to wait and see. Did you give Jalen some pass on the report about Nick? Yeah, I did. Yeah. About his meddling in the offense? Absolutely. And why he was a little bit frustrated with the head coach last year? And why he was constantly looking pissed off on the sidelines? No question about it. Nick Sirianni, in my opinion, a year ago in 23, derailed Brian Johnson's ability to be the offensive coordinator in Philly. You guys can blame Brian Johnson all you want. Brian Johnson said that 95% of the play calls were Nick's. So if you want to go down that route, it was Brian's fault. No, it wasn't. He was taking marching orders from Nick. So you can blame Brian, but me, I don't blame Brian, and I don't blame Jalen. I don't blame any of that. That's why I asked you, do you believe they've rectified some of their issues? What's a better offseason? Doing what they did or ensuring Jalen and coach are aligned and they were committed to going back to the 22 offense? Dual. I don't really think Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni are still on the same page. I don't. James says, became a big fan of Kellen. NFL's top 100 is BS, CD, and Chase are higher than AJ. I saw that. Okay. A+, Arthur. There you go, baby. Keep the faith, brother. Wait, Lamb is higher than AJ on the top 100? Yeah. By the way, Big Sills is going to have his top 10 NFL football players here in a second. Taking the offense away from Nick, I say yes, they did. Okay? That's the way to look at it. You're not wrong. I like Chase over AJ personally. Not me. You know why I like AJ? I want a physical wide receiver like T.O. or Michael Irvin on my offense. I want an attitude guy. I want a guy that you're going to be able to knock people out in the secondary. Jamar Chase doesn't strike fear. AJ does. He catches the ball. Getting him on the ground is an issue. Lamb isn't better than AJ. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They actually play in a whole different position when it comes to slotting on the numbers. Sills Kellen work in Los Angeles was amazing. It was, wasn't it? How was Rodgers in the top 100 when he played like one series? Hey, Crowley, are you actually thinking that list has Kirk Cousins ranked ahead of Aaron Rodgers? Really? If you were going to win a ball game, would you take Aaron Rodgers or would you take Kirk Cousins? I mean, let's be candid here on that. Some of those lists, again, like John McMullen said, a little bit of them are a little bit of a popularity contest. Adding Fangio is like adding another first rounder. No, it's not. Hey, man, adding a scheme is not going to make you a Super Bowl contender. The talent on the team, the Jimmies and the Joes, are going to make you a Super Bowl team. A coach doing his job, putting the proper scheme intact? Yeah. Okay. You're telling me adding a scheme that they ran like in 22, where you had far better talent on the team than you do. Hey, think about something before we get into the topics. You do realize that the roster has regressed since 22. it's regressed. It hasn't gotten better. I heard those guys talking this morning like the roster's been getting better. You're not better than 22. And, there's some aspects you're not better than 23. You're more unproven than in the last 2 years. The roster's top shelf compared to 22. That's not true. You had 2 Pro Bowl corners. You had a linebacker with 159 tackles and the other guy 120. You had a defensive tackle with 11 sacks. Both edge rushers were over 10 sacks. You had a right guard who's now in Pittsburgh. An all-pro center's gone. I mean, you're not better than you were in 22. The roster's regressed. But Sills, don't you think there's an upside? Upside to me is projecting. Here we are again, having that conversation heading into camp. Okay? Look, get this. Here's Anthony. I swear this dude smokes crack. What am I saying that's wrong? The biggest eagle head. What am I saying, Anthony, that's wrong? Tell me what I'm saying that's wrong. Tell me what I'm saying. It's my offense. It's my offense. How do you fix what's going on with the offense? Nick, if I knew, I would. What? It's your offense. Mekhi Becton is a backup. What in the world? And you lost Reddick. What, Anthony, am I saying that's not true? Smoking crack on what? Changing the offense and defense is not going to make the team better until they get used to playing in the system, maybe halfway through the season. Sinbad, that's a great take. That's a great take. Get this, Sinbad. You want to hear something? They may have far less wins than in the last 2 years. But by the end of the year, if you're playing like a 14-win team and you got 10 wins, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The records are deceptive. It's how well you're playing in December. Kansas City was playing like a 14-win team. Do we not agree in December and January? And they were playing like a 9-win team early in the year. They ended up with 11 wins. Did it really matter? At the end of the day, like Xander said this morning, get in the postseason, dude. Because certain teams are trending in a different direction when they get there. The war of attrition plays a factor. Eagles Reddick was out hunting sacks, not playing with the team. Look at him now. Hey, Anthony, you better hope Nolan Smith actually decides to be a football player. Hassan Reddick had a down year and he had 11 sacks and 60 tackles. I hope you can replace that. I'm going to make a point to you here on Bryce Huff. I'm going to make a point to you. Okay? Let me show you something here. Then we'll get to the topics. Let me show you something here. How many people are expecting Bryce Huff to replace and to equal what Reddick has done here the last 2 years? By the way, please hit the like button. I want to show you something. How many people believe that Bryce Huff is going to, like John McMullen says, absolutely, it is an upgrade in his eyes. All-Pro Huff will feast in 24, says Twiz. So, Sills, you clearly are not embracing the Eagles a la Kamala. Can we be unburdened by has been? Not sure what that is. I don't think he will. It'll be a failure if he doesn't, says James. Thank you very much, Wayne. Tough call. Can't see it as of now. No replacing Reddick. You're writing like Biden. Casey showed me that they have the right formula when they're able to let Hill walk and still win it all. Completely agree, Charlie. Eagles should get Reddick back. I think that's not happening. Obviously, the news everyone's saying is that Hassan Reddick is not in Jets camp. One more time on that. If you're Joe Douglas, you didn't have a contingency plan, knowing full well that that guy was not going to possibly show up to Eagle camp. And what made you think he was going to show up to Jets camp? Because you're the Jets? What an asinine way to do business. You had no contingency plan on Hassan Reddick, and you thought you wouldn't address it and that the player would just show up because it was $14 million? Man, that's a calculated error. Who's running these New York Giants and Jets teams in New York? Because what they're doing, they're running their franchises into the ground. How don't you have a contingency plan if Reddick doesn't show up to camp and you thought you were going to dick around with his contract and that? Now we know it wasn't a Philly thing. It's a contract thing with him and his agent. I'm not playing for 14-2. You need to address it. It was a Philly thing. Now it's a Jet thing. Okay? That is an absolute train wreck in New York. That's a train wreck. By the way, today, 3:30, we will have our friend Xander Krausen at 4:30, opening up the 2024 season, the legendary Merrill Reese. The golden voice of the Philadelphia Eagles will join us at 4:30. I mean, you gotta be kidding me. Okay, so let me point something out to you here. Here's Bryce Huff last year in snaps. He had 480 snaps. You know how many Josh Sweat had? He had 828 snaps. Almost double the amount of snaps. That's what a starter has. Reed Blankenship, 943. Milton Williams, as a backup, had 494. Jalen Carter, 563. James Bradbury had the most on the team, 1,057 snaps, or 51 snaps, I think it was. James Bradbury played the most football of any player on your team a year ago. He had over 1,000 snaps, almost 1,100 snaps. You actually think that Bryce Huff is going to go from 480 snaps to 900 snaps as a starter, and he's not going to get worn down when Micah Parsons gets worn down? Good luck. He's never played more snaps than he did a year ago. Those are backup snaps. What kind of playing condition are you in? Hey, running around a track and on a treadmill ain't going to prepare you for that. Why do you think there's a thing called a rookie wall? There's a rookie wall because you're asked to play more plays in a 17-season NFL year than you are in college. Did you notice after week 12, Jalen Carter and both Jordan Davis fell off the map? Because their bodies are conditioned to play a college schedule. This guy's body is conditioned to play a backup's role. Is he going to be able to hold up? Again, projection. He's a pro. He sure has. He's been a backup. He's been a backup. And again, I'm not talking about his ability. I'm talking about, here's a guy that's never played the volume of snaps he's going to have to play. Because they're going to start him. He's making $18 million. So now you're going to have to start this guy. 800, you're going to have to play him 400 more snaps. Something he's never done in his career. 1 year with 10 sacks. Never played over 480. Backup role. And he's going to take over for Reddick. Okay. Projection. Okay, projection. Okay? So you think he won't be able to hold up? I'm saying I don't know how. Hey, Alejandro, I don't know. I don't know. He's never been in that role. He's never been asked to be in that role before. Hey, Alejandro, do you think Michael Parsons gets worn out by the end of the year? You think he gets worn out by the end of the year in Dallas? Do you? Do you think he gets worn out? And there's a guy that plays about 850 snaps. And he's still learning how to do it. I understand, but the tape doesn't lie. He has a motor that wins on each snap. Okay. Once again, Prince, you're talking about a guy who's never played the kind of volume of plays he's going to be asked to, which means he's been put in plays and situationally, which means he's been mostly put in third down. He's never been put in first and second down. He's going to be playing those downs. That will wear you out, just like it does Parsons. This is a completely different role. He was a specialist in New York. He wasn't a 3-down player. He was a 3rd-down player. Now, that's important because I told you that's the money down. But he's going to be asked. You're putting him in completely. Now, you're going to go like this. Well, he's a pro. Okay, I get it. I get it. But this is not anything he's ever done before. He's never done this. Never been playing on first and second down. He's going to be asked to play first and second down in Philly. He was never asked that in New York. They put him in on 3rd down, brought him in, limited snaps. Hey, and by the way, does that shock me that he's very productive on those limited snaps? No. Because when you're put in 3rd down, you're put in a winning situation. No matter if you're winning or losing. He's not put in critical situations for the Jets. Reddick's been put in critical situations for the Eagles. Like I told you before, I watched that guy wreck the NFC title game. He was the best player in that game on both sides of the ball, and that's saying a lot with the 49ers. 49ers didn't have a player better than that guy that day. The guy was everywhere. Imagine being dumb, thinking the Cowboys didn't do nothing in the draft. Only dumb Lord Vaughn can be that dumb. I would start Nolan Smith, see what he can do. You got to start him. He's got to play. You drafted him 31st. Hey, man, your redshirt year's over. Kid's got to play, man. He's got to play. Jets had a killer defense. Huff led the team in sacks as a backup. Okay, that's not bad. That's a good number. Hey, as a second team guy, that's why they let him walk. Think about that, Slagger. If he was so good on that Jets team, why the Jets? But then again, after watching the way that Joe Douglas is handling Hassan Reddick, I'm going to pull that comment back because Joe Douglas is looking like a dumbass right now. So you end up moving off of Huff. You end up trading for Reddick, and you're back in the same position you were with Huff, not wanting to give Huff the money, and now you got a guy holding out in Reddick. Joe Douglas's problems, they didn't change. Just the name of the player changed. That's how stupid that is. That's just, look how stupid that is. And what he did. The player changed. The same issues in New York. They didn't want to pay Huff. Right? They didn't want to pay him, so they let him walk. Okay, well, let's trade for Hassan Reddick. Okay? Reddick goes, hey, fuck you. I wanted more money. You know I did in Philly. Now he's not in camp. Hey, Joe, same problem. Different dude. Holy cow. And he doesn't have a plan for it. You can't move off him because you need that pass rush. I think actually Reddick's got the leverage here. Hey, you want a pass rush? Hey, could the Jets be sabotaging that so they don't have to give a second rounder up for him? Knowing full well, no matter what, you're going to get a third-round comp pick? You think that's what Douglas is thinking? Hey, if I don't play him, I'm still going to get a third-round compensation pick next year. You think that's what he's doing? He's kind of sabotaging the thing? And he doesn't want to give the two up? Because if you sign him and he plays, the Jets have to give a second rounder up. I'm thinking another pick. So if you don't play him and you don't play him and pay him, you get a third-round comp pick. Is that what they're doing? This is weird. It's so poorly done by Joe Douglas and the Jets. Kudos to Howie, man. Howie was like this. This guy's a fucking nightmare along with his agent. Let's get off of this thing here. Howie takes a lot of heat for Joe Douglas drafts. Joe was the football guy in the room. He's an overrated as a general manager. Boy, I'll tell you, he's sure looking it, man. They got the wrong coach in the building, too. I think Robert Saleh sucks as a head coach. I think he's pretty good as a defensive coordinator. I'd like to have him in Philly. But when you're talking about him running that organization as the head coach and you got Joe Douglas making dickhead moves like this, I mean, hey, I don't think Joe does that poorly when it comes to the draft. I think he does poorly when it comes to negotiating. All the things that made Howie great when it came to negotiating and contracts and salary cap and leveraging, that's what he doesn't have. That's what he misses. That is a colossal train wreck. Remember, Vermeil, we might get beat, but we won't be outplayed because we will be so well conditioned. Dude, how many times, Charlie, have you seen the more conditioned team beat the better and more talented team? I see it all the time. You see that, especially in professional sports. You see that. You see a lot of that in pro sports. The more conditioned team is usually the team that's going to be the stronger team at the end of the year and going to be the stronger team at the end of games. Make no mistake about that. I heard the Eagles didn't even interview Dillard, but they trusted Joe's opinion enough to draft him in the first. Hey, man, I think Joe's done a nice job in the draft up there in New York. The running back, the receiver, the deal with Quinyon Williams that they've done a nice job. Or Quinnen Williams up there, the defensive tackle, who I really like. There's some good football players on that team. They just got the worst coaching in there. They need a better coach. They need a more skilled offensive coach. Don't be shocked if that job's open. And if the Eagles do a good job in Kellen Moore could be up for the Bills job, and he could be up, obviously, for the Jets job. I think those two jobs are going to be open. Howie made a smart move by not giving Hassan a big contract. Well, we'll see. You don't know that, DRC. What if your boy has 6 sacks? If your boy has 6 sacks, it wasn't worth it. You could say that today before they haven't played any ball. But if that guy Huff doesn't deliver 11 or more sacks the next 2 years, it's been a downgrade. And you're paying more money. Remember, you got a lot of pressure on your football team this year. Barkley's got to have a better year than DeAndre Swift at $1.5 million. And last year, that guy had 1,100 yards rushing. The year before that, the guy had $1.5 million also, was Miles Sanders. He had 1,300 yards rushing. You gave this guy $8 million. He can't just have 1,300 yards. I mean, he can have 1,300 yards rushing because that's not an upgrade. Now, it could look different. It could. situationally, all of a sudden you're seeing him late in games, closing teams out, and you're going like this. No, that's why you got Barkley, because Barkley's a finisher and he's closing the football team out. Okay, it could be the same numbers but look different. Absolutely. Absolutely. Quality plays versus just stats. There's no question we see that all the time. Like Jalen Hurts' 22 season wasn't anywhere near the numbers that he had in 23, but he had more impactful stats in 22. I think we all agree to that, right? They always pluck out of the NFC East. Barkley will be a difference maker, Alejandro says. I'm going to make some bold predictions here. We're going to have our 2024 Philadelphia Eagle as they report to training camp today. 10 a.m. tomorrow is the first practice. Big Sales 2024 Philadelphia Eagle. Bold predictions. But first, I'm going to give, hey, by the way, what do you make of Pro Football Focus not having Hurts in the top 50 players in the NFL? Is that a big deal? Not that Pro Football Focus is a barometer on how good your guy is. Okay? But Pro Football Focus doesn't have Hurts in the top 50 players. They have other players in the top. Let me see here. Pro Football Focus has Lane Johnson 21, A.J. Brown 25, Jalen Carter 41. No Hurts. Here's the top 10. Mahomes 1, Garrett Cleveland 2, Trent Williams 3, Justin Jefferson 4, Micah Parsons 5. I disagree with that. Chris Jones 6, Nick Bosa 7, Tyreek Hill 8, Fred Warner 9, McCaffrey 10. I'm going to give you my top 10 players here in a second. Based off of last year, that's cool. You should see the NFL predictions. Green Bay versus the Jets in the Super Bowl. Wow. Yeah, that's their prediction. I don't see that at all. Okay, I don't see that at all. What do you think of the Niners having 5 of the top 10 and losing the Super Bowl? I think it's right. I think the San Francisco 49ers do have the top offensive roster and offensive and defensive football team in the NFC. Probably in the NFL. Hey, just because you have the top roster, you had the top roster in 22, and you couldn't beat the lesser roster in Kansas City. Just because you have the top roster and you have more talented players, that doesn't mean you're going to beat Mahomes. Don't you understand that? You can have all the talent in the world. It still doesn't matter if you don't have the right quarterback. If you don't have the quarterback that can win you that game, you have no chance no matter how talented your team is. Every single Super Bowl, the last 2 Super Bowls, Kansas City's gone into the game with the lesser talent and won. Coaching and the QB. And players that have been in that light for the last couple of years. As a fan, I'm used to it by now. This guy won't crack anybody's list because of inconsistent play. Hey, think about this for a disciple. Tell me if you think this statement's correct about the Eagles the last 3 years. It's been 3 different teams and 3 different Jalen Hurtses. Is that fair? Is that fair? Disciple. Have the Eagles been 3 different teams the last 3 years? And you've had 3 different Hurtses. Is that fair of a comment when we're talking about going into training camp here? What kind of team are we going to see? Are we going to see the 22 team? Or are we going to see this? Are we going to see somewhere from the 22 to the 23 and somewhere in the middle? Can you get to a Super Bowl being a combination of both those teams? We got to get rid of the turnovers. I'd rather be a combination between 21 and 22 than 22 and 23 because of the turnovers. Three different Eagle football teams. One now was completely unknown on one side of the ball. 22, there were no question marks. What was the biggest question mark heading? That's a great question. What was the biggest question mark going into 22? Would the new coordinators be able to mesh with the veteran leadership that was on the team on both sides of the ball? And it ended up, and it did. Lesser schedule, not very good quarterbacks that year, really good roster. The luck of the Irish when it came to the health of the team, everything was in sync. So many things and so many boxes were checked in 22. 23, you walked into that. Question marks everywhere. Were you going to be able to replace the linebackers? Turns out you couldn't. Were you going to be able to place a playmaker in Gardner Johnson? Turns out you couldn't. Were we going to see a little bit of a setback with the cornerbacks because of age? Turns out it was a massive setback. Turns out the 70 sacks was something that you may never see again. It's only happened twice in NFL history. So the volume of sacks went down. Father Time caught Brandon Graham. Maybe the knee injury that he had in high school, Josh Sweat, starting to creep up. The Eagles are starting to go cold on him. There was talk of moving him. Okay? Hey, Wayne, I saw Barkley pick you guys to win the Super Bowl. I think that's pretty good. Harder schedule in 23, Sills. Yep, that absolutely. Had one of the top 2 schedules in the NFL. That played into it. No question. You know, I heard Bill talking about Jalen's play last year. I hate how people segment it. Well, you know, Jalen was the MVP candidate for 12 weeks. You know, it'd be great if we only played 12 weeks. He's playing really good. Were they? I never thought they were at all. I never thought that offense ever hit and played its best ball. Hey, wait a minute. Like Bill said, he was an MVP candidate. Well, let me ask you this. Did you really think the Eagles played at any time their best ball? I didn't. Am I wrong when I say that? Maybe you guys thought they were playing their best ball. Did you think they played their best ball last year? And by the way, they're so good and talented. They're really beating good teams. Okay? The Eagles are 7th in rushing. We got to the bowl 4th back in 2017. We thrive when we start in the trenches first. Keeps the defense and it gets them 3 and outs. Absolutely, man. I'm 100% with you. NS Wells goes, we never really did, Sills. I thought, hey, you know what, Mike? I think that Miami game may have been their best game. You agree, Mike? Mike, the Miami game was probably their best game. Their best moment was probably Buffalo in the OT, right? If I had to go back to 23 and give you a positive, that Miami team that had all those big-time weapons on it, they stopped them on both sides of the ball. Right? Yeah, but DRC, I never thought the Rams were as talented as the Miami Dolphins. 2 1,000-yard receivers. You got one of the best deep threats in the history of the sport. Their running backs are really good. You got a pretty decent offensive line. You got a guy who led the NFL in passing yards a year ago. And they shut that team down. It's a little different than the Rams. Again, look, I got a lot of respect for the Rams. But I think the Rams got better in the second half of the year. I think they got better in the second half. I don't think they were as good in the first half of the season a year ago. I like that win against Miami because I was expecting fireworks in a loss. They blew them out, I thought. I mean, they absolutely, I thought, took the whooping board, and I thought they spanked them in that game. I mean, I thought the best game they played. Okay? A la Ramsey and Howard didn't play. That clearly is a factor. By the way, that was Nick Fangio's defense, too, that they crushed. Finish 11-6 with a tougher schedule and poor coaching. We must not forget about that situation. Prince, yeah, but you didn't straighten that out because the same guy who got in the way is in there. That's why my problem is with this football team this year. Your problems haven't been resolved between the quarterback and the head coach. There's going to be a time this year, especially early on, when that is going to be threatened. And you're going to have to keep an eye on that. Tensions are going to be high this year, early, to see how everybody handles their role. You know what's crazy? We're going to find out what kind of role Vic Fangio has when it comes to leadership, and we're going to find out what kind of autonomy Kellen Moore has early. And then we're also going to find out through Nick Sirianni's behavior, what's the one thing you can always count on? Nick Sirianni wears his emotions on his sleeves. Does he not? He wears his emotions on his sleeve. So you're going to be able to know if he's going to be able to handle the pressure. His job's on the line early. Because I'll tell you what he does early is going to be a lasting impression for the remainder of the year and how that front office looks at him. Is he going to be the CEO guy? Is he not going to panic? The Eagles panicked last year, front office and coaching staff-wise. They panicked. It was unbecoming of a Super Bowl contender. They panicked. Then the players panicked. Have they resolved that? You would hope so. There's a ton of talent. And there's a ton, get this, as much talent as there is on the team, you have as much potential on the team. Your offense has talent. Your defense has potential. That's where lies the issue of going into training camp. When you talk Kansas City, talent on defense, talent on offense. There's no potential with those type of teams. There's no potential in San Francisco. Shit, I don't even think there's potential in Detroit. I think Detroit, over the last 27 games, has won 20 ball games. They got a better record over the last 27 games than the Eagles do. And they got a better playoff record over the last 27 games. They're moving in the right direction with Brad Holmes as the GM, Dan Campbell as the head coach, and Jared Goff as the quarterback, believe it or not. And you know what's crazy? And I keep telling you guys this. I have never been a Jared Goff guy. I've just never been a Jared Goff dude. So what do you think? Stills, why do you pick on Michael Parsons so much? As a Cowboy fan, I firmly believe he's just as good, if not better, than Myles Garrett. That's so ridiculous. Micah Parsons gets annihilated on the run. Myles Garrett rips teams a new one on the run. He's a complete ball player. It's not even close. I saw the Arizona call. Hey, you want to watch an ass kicking? Watch Micah Parsons versus Lane Johnson. He looks like he has a Velcro jersey on. That guy never gets around him. Lane annihilates him. Lane Johnson could walk around for the rest of his life with a Micah Parsons highlight reel. Hey, this is what I do to Parsons every time I play him. I put him on his fucking back. You ain't putting Myles Garrett on his back. Not even remotely close. Got to be kidding me. You're a Cowboy hater? Get this. This guy Redline thinks I'm a Cowboy hater by telling him the truth about Micah Parsons getting crushed against the Cardinals. James Conner, like the guy from Terminator. Is there the guy's name? The guy from Terminator. Sadakana's son. Ran for 200 yards on your ass. Sadakana. James Conner. The kid who had cancer. ran the guy over. Here's Michael Parsons. Here, let me show you something, man. You know what he is? This guy's going to be in Paris doing the backstroke. Hey, here's Michael Parsons doing the backstroke. Hey, man, what's happening? Well, I'm getting knocked on my back. Dude, are you crazy, man? Yeah, he's the next LT. Yeah. That's like somebody telling me that Aaron Donald's the next Reggie White. Sure. Okay. Here is the Big Sills top 10 NFL football players going into 2024. I see all these lists out. Big Sills Minds will have his own. The Lions may win a Super Bowl before the Cowboys. Can you imagine Calvin Johnson on today's Detroit Lions? And they can't hip tackle? Shit. Can you imagine Jerry Rice playing in today's NFL and you couldn't hip drop tackle? Oh, my God. He'd have 4,000 yards receiving. You can't hit the quarterback and you can't hit the receiver. Wow. Today's NFL, man. Hey, just to show you, back when I played, 47 players made the team. You know 70 players make a ball team now with the practice squad? 70. Holy shit. 23 more players make a football team today than they did back in my time. I mean, 70 ball players make a team. Back when I played, like I said, 47 were active. That's it. And you couldn't hide them. There were no practice squads. I mean, you were either hurt, you put on IR, and you didn't play the rest of the year. I mean, get this. You had lesser players and you practiced more in camp. Just to give you this, when I went to camp with the Buccaneers in 87, my rookie camp, it was 95 degrees temperature and it was 99 degrees humidity at Pepin Rood Stadium. And we did 3-a-days. This is how we would do it. We'd get out in the morning. We'd get back in. We'd go and eat breakfast. Then we would go lay in our rooms, go back out for the noon practice. Then what we would do was sit out there for about an hour and a half, sucking down on some fudgicles or some icicles. And we would sit there under a tent waiting for practice. Then that would end. You'd go wash up and then you'd go eat and then you go to bed and then you go to meetings, then you go to bed and you're back at it again. And you did that for 3 months. Hey, you did that for 3 months. I'm just trolling. I'm Eagle fan. I just wanted. Okay, red line. I got it, man. All good. New Jersey fishing. Hey, man. Love you, man. I appreciate you being here. Sills, the goofy new kickoff rules will add a big element to the chaos this season. Would-be wins? Would-be. That's right. Agreed. That kickoff thing's going to cost somebody. Do you know the average? Hey, relative, do you know that the average point differential in an NFL game is 3 points? So when you start messing around with special teams like that, absolutely that's going to change the dynamic. So what's your take on the Lions and Cowboys game? I think the Lions beat them. I think the Lions are a better football team. I think they're the second best roster in the NFL. And Goff may be the second best quarterback in the NFC. His numbers dictate it, plus his wins. He had a great year last year. How many quarterbacks in the NFC had better statistics and a better record than Jared Goff last year? Can you name me one? Brock Purdy? Well, Purdy got to the Super Bowl, so no, he didn't have better numbers than Goff. Jared Goff had better numbers. And he had 13 wins, was it? Got his team to the conference championship game. Hurts didn't have better numbers than him at all. Not remotely close. What do you mean Hurts? Hurts had better passing numbers than Jared Goff. Really? You might want to go look that up, kid. And wake me up when Hurts throws for some significant yards. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Those 50 touchdowns don't mean shit at the end of the day. Because that's not the criteria on what Super Bowl quarterbacks look like. It's not the criteria. It's not. No quarterback has 50 touchdowns combined and wins Super Bowls. Nobody. That's why the quarterback, wide receiver getting paid. Correct. Okay? All right. Here's my top 10 NFL players. Number 10. After ripping him a new one, I do have to give him his kudos. He is a good player, but he's not what people think. But I'm still going Michael Parsons at 10. Dallas Cowboys. He's not the best player in the NFC. So I got him at 10. I've got Nick Bosa at 9. 49ers. I got Christian McCaffrey at 8. Number 7, Justin Jefferson, Minnesota Vikings. Number 6, Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills. Number 5, TJ Watt. Number 4, Tyreek Hill, Miami Dolphins. Number 3, Trent Williams, San Francisco 49ers. Number 2, Myles Garrett, Cleveland Browns. And number 1, Patrick Mahomes. So Mahomes 1, Garrett 2, Trent Williams 3, Tyreek Hill 4, TJ Watt 5, Josh Allen 6, Justin Jefferson 7, McCaffrey 8, Michael Parsons 9, and Bosa 9, and Michael Parsons 10. Yeah, yes. Yes. CBS has a different list here. CBS has a different list. I believe they here. And by the way, well, we'll do that one here. We'll do that in a minute. All right. Where's Lane Johnson? Lane Johnson's not a top 10 player. He's not a top 10 NFL player. Mahomes, Garrett, Trent Williams, Justin Jefferson, Michael Parsons, Chris Jones. You could put in there, that's PFF. Let me do my list because that's PFF's. Here. Mahomes, Garrett, Trent Williams, Tyreek Hill, TJ Watt, Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson, McCaffrey, Nick Bosa, and Michael Parsons. Those are my top 10 NFL players. That's who I put in the top 10. Bosa sounds like an overweight Italian child. He was Defensive Player of the Year last year. All right. I'm going to make the big sales 2,000. I'm going to do this with Xander too. At the bottom of the 3:30 Eastern time hour. But I'm going to do it first myself. Then I'm going to get his takes on it. By the way, Merrill Reese will join us at 4:30 to kick off the NFL season. Give me one bold prediction in here. I want to read some of your bold predictions here as we open up training camp today. Just off the top of your head. What would you have for a bold prediction for your Eagles in 2024? Here's mine. Got it. What would be your give me a bold prediction? Red line, Eagles 20-0. That is a bold prediction. Yes, sir. 5-12. That's a bold prediction. That's kind of where I think Angelo, I think he did say 5. Okay. That Dan will flip-flop on Hurts. So, according to Jay Brown, if Jalen Hurts has a good season, this year and reverts back to 22, I'm still supposed to say that Jalen Hurts had a bad year. Is that what he's saying? Or am I supposed to give him his flowers and say that he played really well and he turned it into something instead of just being right now a one-year wonder? I'm curious. How should you cover it? Hey, Jay Brown, you have no idea how to cover the NFL. No take is set in stone. This is not a prediction show. Okay? We're doing something fun here, bold predictions. He's saying Dan will flip-flop. No, even at 22, I would never have Jalen Hurts. Here, let me end that for you too, Jay Brown. I would never want Jalen Hurts as my starting quarterback, as my football team, if I'm building a team around him. He's not what I want. I want a quarterback who can read defenses. End of story. No matter how well he plays this year, I won't deviate off that. Is that fair, Jay Brown? Because I don't believe he can. At this point, he can't. Even Chris, the guy from the NFL Films, Cosell says it. He can't read. Okay. Eagles start 10-0. My prediction. CJ will have 5 picks. Dual threat. 5-12, these nuts. Only way that happens is if they drink lean and smoke meth before every game. You mean like last year? Sirianni gone. Let's see here. Bold prediction. Josh Sweat replaces Reddick and gets 19 sacks. Damn, I like that bold prediction. I like that. Yes, sir. Jalen Carter has 12 sacks and 75 tackles. Jordan Davis, 8 sacks and 50 tackles. Disciple. Both those guys do that. They'll be the all-pro defensive tackles if they do that. And Jordan Davis will get his contract extension. Hey, if that guy gets 8 sacks and 50 tackles, wow. You talk about rolling through. Okay? What's LJ say? Bold prediction. Sileo will hate the Eagles no matter what. Once again, folks, Big Seals don't hate anybody. One thing I only hate is Nazis. I don't give a shit about any. I don't hate any team. Here's a bold prediction. LJ will post by the end of the football season 56,000 posts by the end of the football season. That's a bold prediction that I know will come true. How you doing? Jalen hits elite level. Smitty and AJ will both have 1,500 passing yards. Yes, sir. Let's see. Jordan Mailata will score a running TD. Jay Brown, I actually love that. Can you imagine putting him in like the fridge roll? You put him in the fridge roll. Jordan Mailata running like he ran when he was at when he was playing rugby. Put him back there in the backfield and let him run through that line. Oh my God, I'd love to see that. Hey, maybe that's another version. If the tush push goes away, you put Mailata in the backfield. Hey, let's do this. If the tush push seems that it's not working, put Mailata at 6'8", 378 pounds in the backfield, and then you get Jordan Davis as his lead back, and you run those two guys up the or shit. You can get Mekhi Becton back there and let him run that shit. You think you're stopping 800 pounds a man? You're not doing that. So you Big Seals has now figured out the tush push. If the tush push doesn't work because Kelsey's now retired, I make a plea to the Eagles. Put Jordan Mailata in the backfield on goal line and run him like he ran when he was in the rugby league down in, I think, New Zealand or Australia, somewhere down there. And run him at the goal line. He'll never not score. Or you can even do it in the middle of the field on 4th and 1. You think you're stopping Jordan Mailata on 4th and 1? No. How you doing? James Bradbury, an all-pro again. I don't think that's a crazy one. Okay, I don't think that's a crazy one. I formation. Becton ahead of Mulata. Man, you talk about getting your bell rung, dog. Bold prediction. Pickett does a Foles. Oh! Wait a minute. Whoa! Bold prediction. Pickett does a Foles. God, he wins the Super Bowl. Oh my God. Small hands Pickett delivers a Super Bowl for the Eagles. And Jalen said packing. Holy shit. I like that, man. Goddard has over 10 touchdowns. That's a good bold prediction. I've been begging Mulata to run the goal, for Mulata to run the goal line since we drafted him. I'd love to see that, dude. Hurts may get benched mid-season. Woo! NS Wells with a bold prediction. Hurts gets benched midway through the season. Bradbury and Gardner Johnson work good together. I like these, man. Barkley. Hey, Xander, isn't this what John McMullen's saying? Barkley has 1,200 rushing yards and 500 receiving this season. He has 1,700 total yards. That would be an absolute upgrade. That would be incredible if he's able to do that. He's not going to be in the room with McCaffrey, but I'll tell you what, on a team that's star-studded like the Eagles have, and you get 1,700 yards and you add that to the offense, you're going to go places with that. You would love that. The hate just spews out of this guy. And it just won't be honest. Yeah, Dave. I won't be honest to Dave. Dave and Sea Caucus. Yeah. Hey, Sills won't be honest to Dave Cleary in Sea Caucus, New Jersey. Imagine that. Damn, Sills. You can't even be honest to Dave Cleary in Secaucus, New Jersey. Come on, dog. Be honest to somebody. He won't be even honest to Dave Cleary in Secaucus, New Jersey. Bold prediction. Cooper DeJong with 8 picks this year. Holy shit, that would be. Hey, New Jersey fishing. Secaucus. Yeah. Oh, shit. Funny shit, man. Come on, bro. All right. I pity the fool. Come on, Dave Clary. Even Dave, man. Sills loves the negative takes. What negative takes? I'm giving you my honest takes. Here, I've got some positive ones. There's some positive ones here. Jalen Hurts passes for over $4,000 and 35 touchdowns. Look at Angelo. Hey, you'd actually have a quarterback if that happened. There goes Maniac there, man. See right there? This guy heads the Everlue engines, the Everludes. Probably have knowing New Jersey fishing Maniac, he's probably got dual Everludes back there, or maybe some Johnsons. So he's going up and he goes towards like Jones Beach, waves over there at Jones, rolls it back down, has to turn around and go down to Wildwood. I'm not sure he heads it up to OC. Okay, I don't think he goes up to OC because, OC's not what it used to be. Xander really not really high in Ocean City any longer. So he turns it around. Xander likes down there where like everything's all private and, all the rich guys hang out down there. Right? I don't like riffraff. Hey, right? I'm not high on Barkley. I believe they paid too much for an older type of dude. I predict he sucks for the Eagles. I don't think he's going to suck. I don't think he's going to be the impact they think he's going to be, though. Stills, with Sirianni in the broom closet, is it a plus because of Howie having the experience And if coordinators are better, will you say the Eagles to the Super Bowl? Dude, I don't know how Nick's going to react, though. Nick was poor last year as a leader. Now, they have put him, but okay, if you're going to put your head coach in the broom closet publicly, what's the role that he has on the team? Nuisance? Okay. Bold prediction. Sills loses 40 pounds by the end of the year. Absolutely not. I'm this way because I love it. Hey, I spent 39 years having to worry about my diet and having to worry about bench pressing and all that shit. Being the strongest guy on the planet. I'm not worrying about that anymore. What up, Jason? How you doing, brother? It is opening day here for optimism for the Philadelphia Eagles and their fans. Sills isn't losing any pounds. It's almost Hooter season. There you go, Shooter McGavin. There you go. Keep rocking the meatball, Sills. Wife added a little bit too much garlic in the meatballs last time. Can't really kind of be critical of the meatballs. They're kind of good as shit. You know, they're really great. They're my grandma's meatballs. But, you know, a little bit too much garlic. Sometimes I love garlic. I'm a garlic guy. All right. I'm going to give you the 2024 Big Sills predictions. Are you ready? Are you ready? What? Real Italian says too much garlic? It's just, you know, and it was a little bit over the top, you know? I mean, I love garlic, too. Come on, don't talk to me like that. I love garlic. Bold prediction, Mark Holmes will stop coming around when the Cowboys start 0-3. Oh, man. Or when they bench Dak. Okay? Or when they bench Dak Prescott. Right? I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Big Marshall. Cool. All right, here we go. Big Sills, 2024 Philadelphia Eagle. Bold predictions. Here we go. Jordan Mailata will be first team All-Pro. He will be on the other side of Trent Williams for the All-Pro tackle. Lane will probably make second team, but the two tackles, in my opinion, will be Trent Williams and Jordan Mailata. He makes first team All-Pro. I think every year I've watched him, he's gotten better and better and better and better and better and better and better. I think he's your best football player on your team. How about this? I'll take it back. He's your best athlete. There's nobody better of an athlete than him. 6'8", 380 pounds. Runs a 4.95 flat. Played professional rugby. Transitioned into playing football. Never had played it before. You're talking about one of the best athletes in the league, not just on the Eagles. Yeah, well, they'll put both tackles in. In my opinion, Jordan Mailata, All-Pro, offensive tackle. Agree with you, Jack. Hell of a talent. Number 2, Big Sills, 2024 Eagle Bold predictions. Devontae Smith has more receiving yards than A.J. Brown in 2024. Number 8, Nick Sirianni will be fired on Black Monday, the first after the regular season ends. Number 4, The Philadelphia Eagles will finish in second place in the NFC East. Number 5, Jalen Hurts will resemble the 2023 passing numbers. Because that's who he is. You're going to have to prove to me you're better than that. You haven't in 2 years. Well, 1 year had more turnovers. Well, you asked him to throw the ball more. You think asking him to throw the ball more this year is going to result in lesser interceptions? You don't get it. The reason why Jalen was so good with not turning the football over in 22, because he didn't have high turnover plays. Ran the ball more, and they were open because he ran. Now what you're doing is you're asking him to throw more. Now you're going to ask him to throw across the middle. You think those interception numbers are going to go up or down? When he get this, he had interceptions last year, and he didn't even threaten the middle of the field. He created all those turnovers on the numbers, not across the middle of the field. So when you have him throwing across the middle, you think those numbers are going to go up or down? Well, Kellen's a better okay. He's not a better player. Well, Kellen will make him a better player. If Kellen's got to make him a better player, you're in trouble. Coordinator is the product of his player, not vice versa. You think Bill Belichick is a worse coach today? Or is it the fact that they don't have Tom Brady up there? I think that conversation is really funny. Well, Kellen Moore's going to make him a better player. No, he's not. The player who you have right there is who he is. He's not going to get any better. Now, can you do some certain plays to limit the turnovers and take him out of harm's way and not have those plays that they had last year? Well, wait a minute. You didn't even throw across the middle of the field last year. You didn't threaten the middle. He got all those turnovers on the numbers. So when you add that other dynamic that you're throwing across traffic, you think that's really going down? And a new offense with a new play caller, with a new terminology. Okay, I want to see that. I want to see that. Okay? Look at Dexter. Josh Allen without Dable. How come no one thinks that Josh Allen is not a top 3 player in the league? Still to this day without Brian Dable. Nobody, when you look at how people look at him with the best players in the league and the best quarterbacks, he's always in the top 3. I don't know how you see that. And what Dexter forgets, he's won 4 straight AFC East titles and thrown for 100 touchdowns in 3 years. Over 100. Only Mahomes has more. Seals, nobody gives a damn because you don't like his style of play. Like, really, who gives a damn? Hey, you should, because you ain't winning a Super Bowl with that. They need to work together. Hurts and more. Okay. Hey, okay. Look, I think I've been pretty consistent with you guys. That style is not for me because that's not the prototypical quarterback that takes teams to Super Bowls. He's a guy that throws for about $4,000, 30 touchdowns, has about 150 yards rushing every year, about 3 touchdowns rushing. That's the prototypical in the last 15 years quarterbacks that have won the Super Bowl. Around that. Last 15 years, go back and look. About 120 to 130, 140 yards rushing, 30 TDs, 10 picks, 4,200 yards passing. somewhere in there. You guys keep throwing that 50 total touchdowns. Nobody has fit that characteristic in the last 50 years that's won a Super Bowl. The guy who's had the most touchdowns carrying winning a Super Bowl was Young. He had 6. So, I mean, that style doesn't keep you around the rim like that. That's why you have an inconsistent play when you're talking about those dual threat guys. Here, let me put this into perspective for you. Between Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, I believe they're 4-7. Let's see. They're 6. Yeah, I think they're 4-7. Now, Hurts has gotten to a Super Bowl. Absolutely. Okay? It's the only thing that keeps him in the conversation. If Jalen Hurts had not taken that team to a Super Bowl, I don't know if he'd be the starting quarterback of the Eagles. Think about that. How important that is. If he doesn't take his team to the Super Bowl, and you can't rely on that, we're having a whole different conversation. We don't have any of those conversations about Justin Herbert and them guys. We talk about their playoff failures. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Here's another prediction. I got the Eagles missing the playoffs. Here's another one. I got Jalen Carter with 9.5 sacks. I got Cam Jurgens making the Pro Bowl. And I got Bryce Huff with 7.5 sacks. So here's my predictions. Mulata, first team All-Pro. Devontae Smith has more receiving yards than A.J. Brown. Nick Sirianni will be fired on Black Monday. Eagles finish second in the NFC East. Hurts's passing numbers will resemble 23. Eagles miss the playoffs. Saquon Barkley plays in 12 games. Jalen Carter has 9.5 sacks. Cam Jurgens, a Pro Bowler. Let's see here. LJ says, all negative. Jalen Carter, 9.5 sacks is negative. Cam Jurgens making the Pro Bowl is negative. Devontae Smith having more passing or receiving yards than A.J. Brown is negative. Mulata, first team All-Pro. I got 5 things on here that are all positive. What are you talking about? Not negative. Not negative. Jalen Carter has 9.5 sacks this year. He'll be first team All-Pro. Be first team All-Pro. It's not negative. All negative. That's not true. Prince goes, make it make sense. Okay, Prince. Very simply, make your defense make sense. If you can make your defense make sense, and don't tell me the coordinator. If you can make your defense make sense, you make the playoffs. Until otherwise notified, let's wait and see how that thing looks, man. Because to me, I don't know what you got. I don't really know what you got. Prince goes like this, 5 All-Pros. Let's see. Mulata, Landon, Lane, AJ. I'm assuming Carter. Sil's going to be eating crow at the end of the season. Sills, who do you have winning the East? Bold prediction, James Jones. James Jones, congratulations. I think the Washington Commanders at 9-8 win the NFC East. By the way, there's some people that are picking the Eagles only to win 10 games. I said 7. So I'm 3 off. Sounds about right. Shit, Angelo Cataldi thinks you're going to win 5. I don't think 5. I think there's too much of that. I just do. I'm going into this year. I don't believe your defense. I do not believe it. I do not. You're older at the corner and you're younger in backups and your linebackers stink and you have no depth in your D-line. We'll see. Though that's the truth, what I just said. You have no depth anywhere on your defense. Well, secondary, I think. No depth at linebacker, no depth at D-line. You're limited in pass rushing with one guy who you're hoping is going to resemble Reddick. And the other guy, you're hoping turns out to be a first-rounder, Nolan Smith. Other than that, hey, don't worry about it. There's absolutely too much talent on the offense to miss the playoffs. So you think your offense could carry your defense? Couldn't last year. The coordinators, right? Okay. That's not an awful take. Unapologetic. Hey, coordinators, Sills. Okay. Hey, how about this? Can Vic make it work with limited talent over there? Not limited talent, limited experience. Maybe. I'm just being honest here. Maybe. Commanders getting the broom again. Well, don't get beat by the Giants. Okay? James Jones says Sills isn't the only one saying this now. Moore cannot and will not be able to teach Hurts how to read a defense. No, Hurts has got to learn how to read a defense. Kellen Moore's not going to teach him how to read a defense. That's just going to take constant film work. And I'm not saying he won't do that. But you're about 2 years away from that. Michael Vick didn't know how to read a defense until his 9th year in the league. Mahomes just started telling you about 4 years ago he started learning. He didn't know anything about reading defenses until he got to Andy Reid. You think Lincoln Riley is some sort of great coach? Name me one thing Lincoln Riley's done. He can't even beat fucking Utah at USC. Name me one thing that he did at OU when it came to developing anything. Baker Mayfield? Who else? Jalen was kind of developed at Bama. Lincoln Riley's overrated. Dude, he might get fired this year at USC. They're talking potentially about Deion Sanders getting that job. Lincoln Riley's a bum. He might be the worst hire in Southern Cal history. That's how bad it's at. I mean, you had a Heisman Trophy winner, and you couldn't even get to the conference title game. And now you're going to the Big Ten? Okay. Good luck against Ohio State and Michigan. Seriously, good luck. Go wipe the floor with you. You know why? He can't recruit defensive players. He couldn't at OU, and he can't at Southern Cal. It's one of the worst coaches on the planet for recruiting defense. He's terrible. And Vic won the second playoff game in his career. That's nothing. Let's see. Nick better have the team ready to make a strong playoff run, or he should be gone before the season ends. Hey, Madbird, Nick Sirianni has nothing to do with the success or failures this year of the Philadelphia Eagles. The only way he can have any impact is if he gets in the way. And if Nick gets in the way, that will be his undoing as well. Personally, I think he can't control himself, and he will get in the way. It's his nature. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. He reminds me of somebody else. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I get it. And especially if the ship's going down. Hey, once again here, man, I'm going to take a line from a politician here. All they've done, the Eagle front office, is rearrange chairs on the deck of the Titanic. That's all they've done. White teams leaving the ACC to join the Big 12. Money. The ACC doesn't have... The ACC is in the worst place on the planet, Disciple. You know what that is? You're in the South. Well, shit. If I'm in the South and I'm a football kid and I'm a prospect, you think I'm even looking at anything at the ACC? Never happened. No disrespect, and I love Miami. You know that. I would never play in the ACC. Shit, I left the ACC to go play independent football with Miami. I would never play in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Who, against Duke? Wake Forest? Look, I'm trying to play football. I'm not trying to get a bachelor's degree in law. I'm trying to win some games. Get to the next level. Hey, if I want to be a guy that works at NASA or a lawyer, I go to the ACC. If I want to be a football player, I go to the Southeastern Conference. No kid in the South is going to play in the ACC. That's why Miami doesn't get the top flight kids. And if you do now, you got to pay them. Miami has to overpay what Alabama and Georgia paid to get those kids in there now. Hey, you want a Georgia kid? Well, be prepared to pay $1 million. And Georgia doesn't have to pay $1 million. They'll probably pay $700,000 to get a kid. Miami has to pay $1 million. Same thing with Florida State. That's why FSU wants out of that thing. So you think the worst team in the East is the best. And the coach that blew the Super Bowl for Atlanta. Hey, Bill, I think the coach that's on the hot seat in the NFC East right now is Nick Sirianni. Your so-called great coach is on the hot seat. Hey, don't be upset with my bold predictions. Me and Angelo have been pretty consistent with this. Listen, here's one thing. I'll say it again. Your football, and I heard Bill Colarudo with Xander and with John. And I think Xander asked the question, do you think, the football team is better, I think, than last year? And I'm like, and Bill, of course, because he is the flag-waving Eagle homer that he is, said that, yeah. And I'm like, where? Running back? Okay. Think you're better at center? Shit, are you even better at right guard? You had to move Juergens back over to center. So you got an unknown at guard, wide receiver 3, even on your offense. And you got a question mark at tight end. Those are just on offense. And that's the prime area of the team. On defense, there's only one thing that I think that I'm going to put my hat on a hook on. And that's going to be Carter. The rest of them, I don't know. And by the way, I heard Bill go, well, they got more talent back there in the secondary. How in the fuck do you know that? Where did you get that from? Because they drafted him. Okay, so you're assuming the Eagles did their job. That's fair enough. By the way, that's not a wrong take. That's not a wrong take. You're assuming the Eagles did all their preparation. That's funny too, because Xander's a Bama guy. And I didn't write this one down, but I'm going to do this. right out of the gate. Let's bring Xander Krause in from Birds 365. The guys are doing a great show. Absolutely awesome. And by the way, the predictions and shit on July 23rd, and folks, you're right to be optimistic. I'm not trying to say that. But what I'm trying to tell you is, here's what I see today from my perspective. And Xander, I'll ask you this. So when you look at this football team, and I'll ask you the question you asked Bill, you think this football team this year has more talent on it than it did a year ago?
I don't know if I could say more talent, but I could say better position to win. I think with the coordinators that they have, with the more experienced on offensive players, with AJ and Jalen and Devontae taking that next step. I don't know if I could say more talent. I mean, you lost Jason Kelsey, who's a Hall of Fame football player. You lost Fletcher Cox, who's a near Hall of Fame football player. You lost Hassan Reddick, who's been our best pass rusher really in the last quite some time. So, those are three big guys. I think Bryce Huff is going to be good. I'm not sure I can say that he's going to be that good. I think Cam Jones is going to be solid. I don't think he's going to be Jason Kelsey. I think Jalen Carter is going to be fantastic. I don't think he's going to be Fletcher Cox yet. So it's tough to make up for that type of talent loss. Now, I do think you got better at safety. I think you're deeper in the secondary for sure. I think you have better all-around talent on defense, but I don't know if I could say more talented, but it's not like a talent drop-off where I'm like, oh, you can't win. Like the Chiefs were less talented last year too, but they could still win, if that makes sense.
So do you agree that it's been 3 years of 3 different rosters, and quite frankly, you can actually say 3 years of 3 different Jalen Hurtses?
Well, yeah, and that's where, like I said yesterday on the show, that's where I understand where you as an outsider and somebody that's not grown up in Philly and is a fan of this team you can say that about Jalen Hurts. He's only given us one great year of MVP quarterback play, and that's why we need to see it again this year, and we need to, it's all come down to him. It all comes down to him this year, in my opinion. I've said that from the jump. We're going to go as far as he's going to take us. So if he's going to turn it on and be an MVP quarterback and Kellen Moore is going to pull that out of him, the sky's the limit for this team. They could be a Super Bowl player. If he is not going to rise to that occasion and he's not going to rise to that level, yeah, it might be another disappointing end to the season for the Philadelphia Eagles.
So in your opinion, you think there's a higher ceiling for Hurts? And like he's not, how about this? Don't you think he's going to be somewhere in his career between 22 and 23, and he's going to be somewhere in the middle in there?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think he could get better though. He's still young, Sills. I mean, I think he could. It sucks to say he's going to surpass 22 because I think everybody just goes to like the MVP thing, and I think from a player perspective, he could be better than 22 if he takes the next step at reading the defenses more, using the middle of the field, understanding blitzes and pickups and all those things, doing the quarterback things that he's going to naturally progress at. I think he could be a better player than 22. Doesn't mean I think he's going to win the MVP, but I think he could be a better player than 22 without a doubt.
Sills, haven't tuned in in live for a while because work has been crazy last couple of months. Wanted to drop and say, how you doing? Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, my friend. We so appreciate it. We know people are going to start coming back in because of the start of the NFL season. Barb says something here. 2022 shouldn't be his high point. Hey, Barb, he was 3 points away from winning the Super Bowl, had a great Super Bowl game, was probably a few votes away from winning the most valuable player that year. If you want to give me that 22 season and you want that 22 year, I'll take that 22 year. If that's his high point and you put 5 of those seasons like that together, look at Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is never going to throw for 4,000 yards. Let's just put that out there. The year he won the MVP in 17, Xander, he threw for 3,100. You're never going to see that guy put up numbers. However, don't turn the ball over, have it 3rd and short, win a ton of football games. That's who Hurts is.
He doesn't need to be that guy.
Throw, that's the problem that you have here with that.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be that guy though, because that's what Howie Roseman.
That's the guy that they paid.
No, but I'm saying he doesn't need to be the 4,000-yard passer, and that's part of the reason that Howie Roseman has stacked this offense at every turn. I mean, there's not many other quarterbacks in the league that have this type of a caliber of talent around them. In a way, it's built like Brock Purdy's is, where they're not relying on the talent of the quarterback. They're relying on everybody around them. He just has to be good enough to get them the ball. So you're right. They did build it like that. Now I think Hurts has a bigger upside. I think Hurts can be that guy. I don't know. I don't want to go as far as you're going. I think he could be a 4,000-yard passer in this league.
Okay. He's sniffing around it. I mean, he's been 38, 37, so he's sniffing around it. What I can't get is, I don't know how a guy has two wide receivers 2 years in a row with over 1,200 yards apiece, and he can't get over 3,900 passing yards. I've never seen anything like that. And then you turn around and you saw Wentz with 4,000 passing yards with no wide receiver over 500 yards. It blows my mind. But again, different style of players here. I want to show you something about Bryce Huff. And I know we kind of broached this before, but I did a little bit more research on this. What kind of season do you think Bryce Huff is going to have?
I think he's going to have a big season. I really do. I mean, I think he's going to get every opportunity to have the big season. So it's not like I'm projecting he's like, if he plays good, he's going to have a big season because he's the premier pass rusher. He's got a good defense around him. I think at least on that line, I think Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, they're going to eat up a lot of blockers, Dan. Even if they're not as good as like Jordan Davis, he's eating 2 blockers. Whether he's at the 13th overall pick caliber or not, he's eating 2 blockers. And that's what's going to really free up Bryce Huff. I think he has a big year. I mean, I've been listening to John McMullen talk about him for months now. He is very high on Bryce Huff. And he points to a lot of the stats and the pass rush win rate and some of those the pressure percentages and some of that. It is good. I mean, the numbers are good. That doesn't mean he's going to be that in an expanded role, but boy, the numbers are really good. 2 straight years, Dan, he has led the league in pressure percentage on the edge. Now, granted, he wasn't the top guy over there, so it was a different role, but I think Bryce Huff could have a really big year in this defense. And to be frank, we need him to. If he doesn't, I mean, the defense is in trouble because as we talked about yesterday, you could say the pass rush is the biggest question on defense. Yeah, the linebackers, but linebackers aren't as valuable as pass rushers. If you can't get to the quarterback, defenses, they're going to pick you apart all day long.
Pass rushing affects your corner play.
100, exactly. And that's going to, I mean, if you're not getting home, how much harder is life going to be on those young guys? So that's the whole defense. So look, Bryce Huff needs to have a big year, and I think he will. I really do.
I want to show something to you here. Now, I get what you're saying, but I want to show you what we did with the rookie conversation about Jalen Carter. Every single rookie that comes into this league runs out of gas around week 12 or 13 because they're conditioned to play a 12 or 13 game college football season. They aren't trained for the additional amount of games and practices and the games that you play. And in today's NFL, you play 17. I played 16, and I got to tell you, once you hit week 12, you notice it. So that is something to do with conditioning yourself and preparing yourself to be an NFL player. And you're right. You're paid the money. You've got to get yourself into great shape, but you also got to get yourself into rep shape and into playing shape. Bryce Huff last year had a total of 480 snaps. Josh Sweat last year had 828 snaps, basically almost doubling what Bryce Huff did, which means this to me. When I see 480, here's another one. Reed Blankenship, 943. James Bradbury, 1,057. Even Jalen Carter, 563 snaps. Here's Milton Williams in a limited role or a backup role, 494. Bryce Huff has been a backup and put in situational pass rushing. He's never been put in the game on first and second down. Do you believe and do you agree with me that Micah Parsons gets worn down by the end of the year because teams run at him? Do you agree with that?
I think he could for sure. He has in the past, but I think a bigger factor for him this year is going to be if he doesn't get that contract. He is I think he's a great player, but he has shown that he's emotionally high and low. You know, you see that on the podcast. You see that in moments in games. If they don't give him that money, I have a feeling he's one of those players that's going to be like, look, you don't want to pay me my money? I ain't going to give you the type of play that you want. And I'm going to go to the open market, and I bet you 31 other teams are lined up to give me the type of bag that I want to make, because you know that. Pass rushers are coveted in this league, and he's a good one. So I think that could affect him a big time this year. But you're right. I mean, the run thing is big for him. It's becoming bigger for a lot of pass rushers in the league, Dan. I mean, you're not seeing as – now there are still a lot out there, you know, Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, even the Watt guy, Max Crosby. These are bigger bodied players. They can handle the run, but the style of pass rusher that the Eagles like, even Hassan Reddick, Bryce Huff, Nolan Smith, these are undersized guys. These are not run stopping guys. So you could kind of apply that logic to a lot of pass rushers in the league who are, even Josh Sweat, undersized, not undersized, but not this big bodied player, more long and lanky. But
here's the difference. Those guys are starters and have played 800 snaps and understand it. And so to me, it's going to be interesting to see once they start running, because here's what I'm going to do. When I see Bryce Huff out there, I'm going to run at him. I'm going to run right at him.
Yeah, but Dan, you know the modern NFL. Like I get it. They're going to run at him, but that's not how teams create success in the league today. It's not. It's why
how Arizona beat the Cowboys.
Well, you know, in one small sample size, when you get to the playoffs, you got to throw that ball, and that's how it's going. So my point isn't that it doesn't work. My point is that teams today are way more focused on beating you in the passing game than they are in the running game, and that's why it's become lesser value, where they're not drafting run stoppers as much, and they're not not paying run stuffers as much, and it's just a different NFL, and I think that applies to all facets of the game.
Let me switch over to one thing here for a second. Can you believe what's going on in New York with the Jets? So let me throw this at you. So Joe Douglas lets Bryce Huff walk because he doesn't want to pay him. He makes a deal for Reddick, thinking that Reddick's going to come over, and the problem that he had in Philly now became the Jets' problem. And what was Joe Douglas's what was his alternative plan if that guy wasn't going to sign a contract? So basically, Xander, he's in the same position he was before when he didn't want to give Huff the money, with a pass rusher now he doesn't want to give money to, that he needs on his football team. I can't believe Joe Douglas has done a nice job, and I see why he did a good job in Philly, because he's a good player personnel guy. But when it comes to negotiating, he is no Howie Roseman.
No, he's not at all. And rightfully so. And I was one of the people who I didn't love that trade when Howie made it. You know, I was like, well, you know, you get a future pick for a guy that was your best defensive player that we've had in many years. He was 28 sacks in 2 years. This guy was on a tear, and you let him walk for a future third-round pick? And I'm like, I didn't like it at the time. And the more it starts to play out, I think you're going to see how he kind of won that trade. You know, I think Hassan deserves more money, but apparently he wants 25, 26, $27 million. Come on, Hassan. You're nearly 30 years old. You're a one-trick pony. You're not getting that type of money. Now, where the Jets messed up is you don't make that trade without having this worked out. And that's where Howie would never make a move like that. You know, even when I go back to the last big trade the Eagles have made was A.J. Brown. I mean, I remember sitting there doing the draft show. We had Seth on the set, Derek Gunn was on the set, all these people on the set. And we're like sitting there, Eagles trade for A.J. Brown. 5 seconds later, Eagles extend A.J. Brown 4 years, $100 million. Like, that's like basic stuff. If you're going to trade for a player that is in a contract year, and that's clearly why he was traded, because the team didn't want to get the contract done with him, you got to have that ready, you know. And now that people are talking like the Jets were told he was going to show up without a new deal. Bullshit. They didn't believe that, and they knew that. So that was just a bad move by Joe Douglas. Like, if you're going to make the move and pay him it, fine. You know, Hassan could go out and get 12, 14 sacks this year, and you look fine. But now he looks terrible. The trade looks dumb. And people are questioning why he didn't just pay Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff had 10 sacks for you last year, and he got $17 million. What are you going to pay Hassan? 22 for a 30-year-old guy? That's where Howie wins.
This is going to sound conspiracy, and you tell me, Xander, check this out.
I love it.
So what if Joe Douglas is doing this? You sit out Hassan Reddick for the first 3 games, ensuring that he doesn't get to that percentage of plays that make that trade a second-round pick and keeps it a third-round pick that you have to surrender. Because remember something, you're going to end up eventually getting a compensation of a third-round pick anyway,
right,
of the compensation pick, because you lost that pick with the trade. You tell me, I mean, do you think he's trying to sabotage that playing percentage so it doesn't turn into a second rounder, and that, you still get the guy on the field, but you ensure yourself that it doesn't turn to a 2 and it's a 3?
Yeah, but that's a losing game as a GM. Like, maybe
I agree. Well, I think what they're doing now is losing.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, everything that they're doing doesn't make sense. If they're playing that game, you're not playing the right game. Like, you got to be playing to build a winning football team, not worrying about what draft pick you're going to end up giving the Eagles in 2026 or whatever the hell it was. It's a stupid thing for the Jets, what they're doing with him. If you made the trade, commit to the damn trade and pay the player, or don't make the trade, and now they look dumb. I think Howie's probably laughing right now because he's like, this is exactly what I wanted to avoid. I didn't want to come into training camp with, players coming in without contracts, similar to the Cowboys, even the Niners. They have Brandon Ayuk. Now, he showed up, so maybe they're in talks or whatever. We'll find out. But Eagles wanted to avoid that, and they did. And that's where Howie Roseman was definitely right on this deal.
Let's do something positive here. Do you possibly think that last year's 2023 meltdown, they learned a lot of what not to do that's going to benefit Nick and also benefit the entire roster and players of what not to do? Because you know what, if you think about it, Xander, they've had the highest of highs going to the Super Bowl, and they had the lowest of lows in a nuclear meltdown. I don't know about you, but you learn from success and failures.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, is that something that you take into this going? Because look, don't come at it from the negative angle. Come at it like, hey, man, I'll tell you what, I know what not to do now.
Yeah, but do they?
No, hey, I'm being optimistic here.
Yeah, you are, because we haven't heard. Nobody's been able to identify why that happened last year. You go from 10-1 to 1-6 in your last 7 games. You get blown out by an inferior Tampa Bay Bucks team led by Baker Mayfield in Tampa. It was just a joke the end of that year, and nobody has. Now, maybe they know, maybe they have an idea on the back end, and they're not going to say it publicly, which I'm fine with. They don't have to tell everything publicly, but it doesn't seem that way. There's been a lot of commentary by guys who really, it doesn't matter if they tell. And, even like Kenny Gainwell, remember that clip that went viral, Kenny Gainwell? Like, nobody really knows what happened last year. Was it Brian Johnson? Was it the coaches? Was it the players? Was it Hassan Reddick causing strife in the locker room? I don't really know. Where were the leaders? Where was Kelsey? Where was Fletcher? Nobody knows. So, I guess you're going to learn from it, but if you can't learn from something if you don't identify the mistake, So if I know, okay, this is where I messed up, okay, I can learn from that. If I'm like, hey, that was bad, but I don't know what I did wrong, then there's no lesson to be learned. So that's my fear with it. But you're right. In theory, they should learn from what happened last year, and definitely Nick Sirianni. And I would throw Jalen Hurts in there, maybe even above Nick Sirianni. You're the on-field leader of the team, and that team didn't end well last year. What can you learn from that as the quarterback of the team to move forward and not let that happen again? Hopefully Jalen Hurts knows the answer to that.
Do you think Nick Sirianni is going to show professionalism this year? Or do you think that in times when the team, because they panicked last year and they had a knee-jerk reaction on many issues last year, like you said, it wasn't just one thing that caused it, but this year he's in a different role. And he wears his emotions on his sleeves, Xander. He's not a guy that sits there when the highs are high, he sits level, and when the lows are low, he's level. He's a very emotional. Would it be fair to say he may be the most emotional guy in the Philadelphia Eagle locker room?
Yeah, I do. I think that's very fair. I
But
do.
I don't think the head coach should have that characteristic. Do you?
No, I don't. And that's what I've always disliked about not Jalen Hurts, about Nick Sirianni, that I felt like Jalen Hurts was the guy that was,
Yes.
being the mature one. And I don't think as much as people are like, oh, it's a good dynamic, it works for I don't really think so. I think Jalen Hurts wants a man, a leader, a guy that knows how to lead, and a guy that doesn't get like this when something good. Yeah, well, exactly. He liked that style of coaching.
He did.
And it worked for him. And even when he went to Lincoln Riley, who's obviously not like Nick Saban, but he was not a bull. He was not a rah-rah type of guy. He was an offensive-minded guy that wanted to get into the play and have a productive offense. And I don't think, I thought Jalen with Doug Peterson was great. I always say I would have loved to have seen what Jalen Hurts became in this league with Doug Peterson, because I go back to Jalen Hurts' first couple games starting, which was his rookie year. He only played 4 games. Remember when they put Wentz on the bench? That Arizona game that year, Jalen was throwing that ball around the yard, and that was his first year. He was a lesser developed quarterback at the time, and he was throwing the ball like better than I've seen in some of the recent games in recent years. So I would have loved to have seen that, but yeah, I don't want to write off Nick because it means I got to write off the season, but I am not a Nick. I just don't like his style as a head coach. I really don't.
Well, here's what I will say about what would have happened, in my opinion, with Doug coaching Jalen. I think he would have had honest conversations with him. I think he would have told him things. Jalen would have respected it. And again, dude, one of the greatest moments of coaching was that Philly, is that it's a trust relationship thing with your quarterback in tight moments, in incredibly high pressure moments. And you got a guy here, and I'll always say this, I get goosebumps still talking about it. You got a guy with papers like this. He puts it down. He goes, let's run it. And he's got 100 of these things. He's looking at the right play in the most critical moment in Philadelphia Eagle history. And he goes like this. Let's run it.
Yeah.
And that kind of coaching, Xander, I can't tell you how far that goes for confidence. Look at Andy, on how Andy coaches Mahomes like that. Remember when they were on the sidelines, and I forget the former coordinator that was in there, and they were throwing a bitch at each other.
Bieniemy?
What's that? Yeah, Bieniemy. Bieniemy and him were screaming at one another. Andy went over there and said, hey, relax. And, relax, you too. And that's when Mahomes went over and sat down. Remember what he did? He took the headset off. He goes, here, you want to be the coordinator? And Andy goes over there, calms it down. That, to me, it's Pat Riley-like coaching, Xander. It's not just about plays and shit. It's about heart, and it's about moment. It's about trust. I think Jalen Hurts would have been further along in his development as a quarterback if Doug Peterson was still in the building. But that's just my take here. All right.
Me too, but you can't re-legislate it,
Nope, absolutely not. So Big Sills made some 2024 bold predictions on the honoring of the opening of training camp. Hey, by the way, tell the good folks a little bit before we get into this, some of the programming scheduling differences that you're going to have for Birds 365, because folks, be looking also on JAKIB, because there's going to be a lot of video over the next couple of days that you're going to get from John McMullen, because John's going to be out at NovaCare. So be looking at the network here. Just throw that out just a little bit here.
Yeah, so just Wednesday and Thursday, everybody. Tomorrow and Thursday, Birds 365 will not be in the morning. Birds 365 will be actually right out of the National Football Show here with Dan Sileo. It'll be 6 to 8 p.m., and the reason for that is John has to get down. Their practices are at 10 a.m. They have media availability beforehand, so John's got a 30 or 40-minute drive in there. So he's probably leaving around 7:30, 8 in the morning, getting down there. He's going to analyze, see everything, send the video, and then we'll have a night show. But our promise to you, as I mentioned, is 2 hours of content on Birds 365 no matter what. So tomorrow and Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m., right after the National Football Show, Birds 365 will be live on the air. And then 8 a.m., for anybody that wants to check in with me in the morning, I'm going to be doing a solo quick 30-minute preview to the day for the Eagles training camp, which I'll be doing alone tomorrow. And then I should have John from the car. So with just a graphic, but I should have him on Thursday morning. So we'll just do that. A quick preview to the day. Then we'll get into, the day content in terms of what the team is doing. National Football Show will be live at 2:00. Birds 365 will be live at 6 p.m.
Okay, here we go. The Big Sills, I want to get Xander's take on the Big Sills 2024 bold predictions. Number 1, I got Jordan Mailata, first team All-Pro.
I like it. I don't know if that's bold, but I like it.
Okay. Number 2, Devontae Smith has more receiving yards than A.J. Brown.
Oh, that's bold. That's bold. I like that, though. I think they're going to be right in the same ballpark. And, depending on how defenses approach the team, I think that's a good, bold prediction. I think Devontae Smith takes a big step forward. My only fear with that would be that would require Jalen Hurts to throw him the ball more. And Jalen has shown a propensity to go to A.J. Brown a lot, even in moments when he's double and triple covered. So that bold prediction kind of has other things out there where you're kind of counting on the quarterback to throw him the ball more. I'm not sure if Jalen does that, but I do like the bold prediction because I think Devontae Smith is a better player this year, coming into the year than he was last year.
Number 3, Nick Sirianni will be fired on Black Monday, the Monday following the regular season.
Oof. Yeah, it's tough to go against that one. I mean, if they succeed, then no. So I'm gonna disagree with it in theory because I believe the Eagles will win a playoff game this year, and I don't think they're going to fire Nick after winning a playoff game. But you're right in terms of he's on the hot seat, and if this thing doesn't reach expectations, he is as good as gone. So from that perspective, you can't rule it out, but I'm going to disagree with it for the sake of the conversation.
Number 4, the Eagles finished second in the NFC East.
Disagree. Major disagree. I do not see that at all. I think the Cowboys take a step back this year. I think they're a 10-win team. I think the Eagles are a 12, 13-win team this year. And I think the Eagles
win team. Holy shit. Whoa.
Listen, what have the Cowboys done for you to be like they're going to win the NFC East?
I don't think anybody in that division is going to win more than 10 games. I mean, 10, 9, somewhere in there. I mean,
Shooter says 13 wins. Are you on meth?
hey, I don't believe that division is good.
No, they're not. I mean, based on your projections, they're going to be the NFC least.
Yeah.
Again. Yeah, back to that. No, I don't know.
Hey, by the way,
I don't see the Cowboys winning.
You have a superstar offense, but you don't have a superstar roster.
Listen, how many games you have? What, 6 games versus the NFC East? You got 2 versus the Cowboys, 2 versus the Giants, 2 versus the Commanders. I think you're 5-1 in those games. I think you lose. You split with the Cowboys, you beat the Giants, and you beat the Commanders both times each. Why are you giving me that face?
Because you got beat by Tyrod Taylor last year.
So you think we're going to lose to the Giants this year?
I didn't think I thought you'd sweep the Giants last year.
Okay, so what's your all right? So there's 6 games versus the NFC East. What's going to be the Eagles' record?
Versus the East, I think Washington's going to split. I think the Cowboys are going to split, and depending on what that thing looks like at the end of the year, where you are, playoffs or not, you probably split. I think you split every game. I think you're 3-3 in the division.
All right.
I do.
I don't.
What were you in the division last year? Let me. What was it?
So the same Dan Sileo.
Wait a minute.
Wait. The same Dan Sileo who on this show said, I think the Giants are the worst team in the NFL. Not in the NFC, not in the NFC East. The worst team in the NFL.
They are.
They're going to beat the highly talented $175 million.
With the worst team in the East last year.
Okay, I will agree to disagree. I think at worst they go 4-2 and they split with the Commanders and the Cowboys.
Okay. All right. Bold prediction 2024. Big sales. Eagles missed the playoffs.
Oh, that's for blasphemous. Get out of here. The NFC as a whole isn't good enough for the Eagles to miss the playoffs. They would have to be that if they're going to, all right, if they miss the playoffs, This thing is going to be blown up before we even reach the end of the season. Nick will be fired before the last game. Jalen, it's potential that Jalen spends a game on the bench, and it is utter chaos in the city. If that's how it goes, it will be chaos in the city.
You'll think this is a Trump rally.
Yeah, literally. You're right.
Okay, next one. Saquon Barkley plays in 12 ball games.
Is that bold?
Well, shit. Long as it's the last 12.
Yeah, well, that might not be how it goes. But let me look up real quick. How many games has he played the last several years?
I think he had 2 years ago. He played in like 14.
Okay, so the last 4 years. You ready?
Yeah.
2 games played in 2020, 13 games played in 2021, 16 games played in 2022, 14 games played in 2023.
So how many games he missed?
Oh, well, the 2020, he only played 2 games. So he basically missed that whole year. Then he played 13.
That's a 14, that's 16 season. That's still the last of the 16 season.
Okay, so then he missed 4 games in 21. He missed 1 game in 22, and he missed 3 games in 2023. So you're saying he's going to miss 5 games in the last 3 years. Yeah, maybe it's a little drop off, but my point is that's not a bold prediction. He hasn't been a healthy running back. I will disagree with it, though, because I think he has a better offensive line this year, and he's not going to have the same type of setup as he had in New York with a shitty football team and a shitty offensive line and a shitty quarterback and shitty coaching and a shitty organization. So I'm gonna take the no on that, and I'll say he plays 15 games, misses 2.
The next bold prediction: Jalen Carter has 9.5 sacks.
That's another non-bold. Do you know what bold means? Shooter's right.
Wait a minute. You really think that getting 9 sacks is easy in the inside?
No, I don't. But I think
when's the last time you had a 10-sack interior defensive lineman? Can you name him?
But my point is that I know it's hard, but Jalen he already put up 6 last year.
Okay.
As a rookie. So you're projecting a 33%.
Fletcher had 6 as a rookie.
33% increase is not a bold prediction from year 1 to year 2. It's just not.
Getting 10 sacks as an interior defensive tackle if he has 9.5 sacks, he'll be first team All-Pro.
I know that, which is great, but he showed that he has that talent last year, which is why I don't think it's a bold prediction.
So what do you think? 15 sacks is a bold prediction?
No, I think if you said 12, 13, 14 sacks, I'd say that's very bold. I think he gets 10 sacks this year. I think that's right on the number. I think you're right on the number. I would be curious to know what the Vegas number is.
Oh, that's right, Dan. Thank you, Dan. You're right. I forgot. Hargrave had 11 in 22. That's why he got that $20 million deal. Think about that for a second, Dan. One of the reasons why Javon Hargrave was not great against the run, he's okay against the run. He got a $20 million contract in a contract year because he had 11 sacks that 22 season. What's the number on Carter? Do you know?
I'm trying to find it. I don't think I can't find it anywhere. I don't know. Let me go in the odds shop here and see if I can find it. If anybody that's a better, I'm not a better, so I'm not, to be blunt, I'm not good at finding these odds as good as some other people are, but I'd like to find what the player props are. There's nothing coming up for his player props. So I think Vegas probably has it at 8. I mean, he had 6 in his rookie year. You got to factor in a small increase at least.
Okay. Well, with more volume of plays too. We'll see.
My bold prediction is that Dan's next bold prediction will actually be bold.
Okay. Bryce Huff has 6.5 sacks.
Oh my God. That is bold. That is bold. If he has 6.5 sacks, you better, there's not going to be a peep about Joe Douglas and how he handled Hassan Reddick. That will be tragic. Our defense will stink out loud because nobody will be getting home, and that will be a major problem. 6.5?
6.5.
That is low. That is low. He needs to produce more than that. So I would say that's very bold, and I'm going to take the over on that. I think he goes at least 10. At least 10. 10! He had 10 last year in New York.
Oh, okay. Well, he's in a different role this year. He's got the big boy pants on now. He ain't at the little kiddie table where he's a backup. He's
That's
now
true.
at the big boy table. This is the dinner table when you're down there at Cape May and the Krauses are sitting around getting ready for turkey dinner, and everybody's at the big table, not the
All
kiddie
right,
table
all
with the sippy cups.
All right. 10 sacks last year, 17 games played. Look, I think he has 10 plus sacks this year. At least, I think it's more like a 12, 13 sack year for him. And I feel pretty good about that. 6.5 is Bryce Huff will be booed out of Philly with 6.5 sacks. Booed out of Philly.
Okay, here's the next one. Nolan Smith will have 3.5.
First round draft pick. What did he have last year? 2? He had 2 last year, right? He had
Check.
2. Oh boy. If he's got 3.5, boy,
So that means you got 9.5. That means you got 10 sacks between two dudes.
barely. You're barely getting
And
10
last
sacks
year,
in a
Reddick had
season.
11 in an offseason.
Oof. He better beat 3. I think he beats 3.5, but you're not wrong. I mean, he hasn't. What has he showed? He showed absolutely nothing. Nothing. Not a smither of hope for him to have more than 3.5. So, from that perspective, I understand why you made that a bold prediction, but I think he beats it. I really do. I think he gets 5, 6.
Can I tell you something off the cuff here? What I would do to get pressure? Just
Sure.
I don't know. I'd take that Devin White kid's ass, line him up with that 4.4 that he has, and make that dude into Reddick and make him rush the corner. He runs a 4.4. He had 6 sacks his second year in the league. I mean, he knows how to get there.
I know, but he's 6 foot 230. I guess Hassan is 6'1",
What is he,
230.
6'1"? Hassan Reddick, 6'1"?
Yeah, Reddick is 6'1". Devin's 6 foot. Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. You're right. It's an interesting point because now Mike is 6'3", 245. That's where I think he's a little small, but where you're right is Devin White is very athletic. It's never the knocks on him have never been athletic. So maybe if you put his foot in the turf and say, go get him, maybe he is more effective that way. Remember, he had that 10 sack year, didn't he? That one year
the year they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So I just don't think they're going to go there with him, but I kind of like it. I kind of like that from you.
Don't you think you have to be a little bit creative with some of the people that you have over there? Because I will agree with you on this, Xander. I don't think you have a lot of experience on that side of the ball, but you know what you do have a lot of? You have a lot of athleticism. Hey, rush that kid Cooper DeJean off the freaking corner.
Yeah.
That kid runs a 4.4.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, bring him. But see, again, this is not what Nick likes to do because when you bring pressure, what's that mean? Well, it's all or nothing. And that's not something he likes control and contain. But he did have a really good year last year in Miami with the sack numbers breaking a Dolphin record here. Okay, so those are my bold predictions. I want to throw this at you here. Not named
You don't have any bold predictions on Jalen Hurts, or is that where you're going now?
No. Well, no, I made a bold prediction. Oh, wait, maybe I didn't say this. I think here's one. That Jalen Hurts, his numbers will resemble 2023 passing numbers. I don't think he's going to be any better.
All right. Well, that's not very bold, but I like it. I mean, I think you're probably right.
But wait a minute. You know why it's bold? It better not be.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, boy. Well, listen. What if he has the same?
What I think 25.
Wait. Let me say this though. What if he has the same numbers, but he cuts his turnovers in half?
Being an NFC title game.
Okay. So
but do you not agree that he got those interceptions last year throwing on the numbers? They didn't even throw across the middle of the field. They're going to try to have him throw across the middle of the field. When you throw across the middle of the field, that's higher turnover rate.
Yeah.
When you're throwing across traffic like that.
The fumbles are also
say that the numbers are going to come down turnover wise. Hey, Xander, a tip pass in traffic.
Yeah.
A guy fumbling, shit like that. You have more issues on turnovers with tip passes across the middle. That's why they tried limiting him on going there. What was his quarterback rating? 8 across the middle after Goddard went down. All of those turnovers he had were on the numbers. Now they're going to try to open up the middle of the field. That means you're going to throw more passes that have a higher turnover rate. 22. The reason he didn't have such a high turnover, he didn't have high turnover rate because he wasn't throwing difficult passes, because his running and his legs made those passing lanes a lot open. They were wider open. They were more mature routes because of their fear that he was going to take off. In 23, they were shorter routes, and he held the ball longer, and the blitzing. So Kellen Moore is going to come in there and change that. I just can't see that in 1 year or in 6 months since he's been hired. I find that to be a really big time reach. Now, Todd Monken went into Baltimore, Xander, and turned Lamar Jackson into an MVP. Okay? I mean, can it happen? I think they went more to his style. I think they're asking Hurts to do a little bit different than what they're asking. I don't think they're asking Lamar to throw more, but they are asking Jalen to throw more. And I think that's going to create a little bit more time. 25, in my opinion, is going to be when you're going to see the best of Jalen Hurts if they keep the coordinator intact.
Yeah, you're right. No doubt about it. I have a bold prediction. So I wrote one down that I had coming in, and you are going to, this is a bold prediction. Okay. This is a bold prediction. The Philadelphia Eagles will have the #1 ranked offense in the NFL. That's my bold prediction. They will have the best offense in terms of yardage, offense in the NFL.
Based on, well, they were 8th last year.
That's what I mean. You got Kellen. You got the talent still there. You got Saquon. And I think Kellen Moore is going to be immensely better than whatever the hell they had last year was. He had the #1. Remember, he had the #1. Screw Nick. Nick's not a part of this offense this year. That's how they're talking. That's how they're framing it up. So that's how I'm talking about it.
Okay.
Listen, Kellen had the #1 offense
twice.
Yes, already in Dallas. Now, Hurts is a lot different than Prescott, but outside of that, the team was kind of built similarly. They had the good receivers. They had Amari, and I forget who they had. Did they have Gallup at the time? I don't think they had CD.
Yeah, Michael Gallup.
They had Michael Gallup. They had Zeke and Pollard. So I think, that's my.
And they had that tight end too. I think his name was Gesicki.
Gesicki? No, did they have him?
I think they had a tight end in there too that was pretty good. I forget who the tight end was, but the Cowboys had that tight end in there. By the way, I like Twiz. Twiz's bold prediction is better.
Yeah, we got 2 of those.
Top 10 defense.
Yeah, they got 2 of those here.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that one. I'll just say that. I'm not going to go there with the defense. I don't know how good the defense is going to be this year. Schultz, that's it. Yeah, Schultz. Dalton
Schultz, that's it. Way to go. Okay, one last one here.
Dallas.
One last one here. Not named Hurts. Oh, no. Throw Hurts in this. The 2024 offensive identity of the Eagles. This will be the year of Barkley, Hurts, AJ, or Devontae.
You want me to pick one?
Yeah.
Hurts. Well, here's why. Because if it's any of
the offensive star in 3 years.
Okay, well, if it's any of the other guys, guess what? We're not going to reach expectations. When it was A.J. Brown last year, who had 1,500 yards, what did that get us? Absolutely nothing. Devontae Smith had 2 straight 1,000-yard years. What did that get us? Absolutely nothing. When Jalen Hurts was at the top of the MVP voting, we went to the Super Bowl and came within 1 drive of raising a banner. Jalen Hurts, it needs to be Jalen Hurts. I will stand by that. Now, you might be right that it's not going to be him, but we need him to be the guy. Shooter says it got you 10-1. Yeah, it got you the halfway through the year Super Bowl championship. It's a week 11, and the Eagles are the champions of the first 11 weeks. That's what it got us. They sound like the Cowboys. Sound like the fucking Cowboys.
I was just thinking the same thing here. The bold prediction, though, baby. Eagles missed the playoffs. I'm with Angelo.
That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
Wait a minute, Angelo's got you at 5 wins. At least I got you at 7.
Angelo, come on, man. Come on, Angelo. Angelo knows better than that. You know what else Angelo knows? He knows how to do a talk show. And he knows how to create some headlines, and he knows how to make people make comments in the chat, and he knows how to get views and impressions and clicks and all those things. 5 wins, that is outrageous. If they have 5 wins, how bad will the nuclear explosion be? Will it be just the coaching staff?
No.
Will the coordinator be on the block, or the quarterback be on the block? Will Howie be on the block?
I don't think they would fire Howie, but what
No,
they
they're
would
not. I've
do-
said that. They're not.
No, but what they would do, I think the owner would come down on him.
Oh, for sure. For sure. No doubt about it. 5 wins. 5 wins with this team. Come on, man. Where's my boy James Jones? He's got to be in here. I know James. James Jones, where you at?
Hey, I got James Jones's Washington Commanders winning the East.
James. He's not an Eagle fan. He's a Commander fan. Tell us that you know we're better than a 5-win football team, James. I know
Don't
you
do
know
it,
it,
James.
James, you know
James,
it. We're
don't
better than
do
a
it.
5-win team.
James, don't do it.
Don't listen to
telling
this
you.
clown. We are
Hey,
better
James.
than a 5-win football team.
James, let me throw this. He won't, because he's an Eagle fan. He won't admit it. But in the last 2 years, the team's regressed. As just as the quarterback has.
The team has definitely regressed. They were on the Super Bowl and they went 1-7 or 1-6 down the
Well,
stretch.
then how are you and Big Bill telling me you're better now?
I didn't say that. I said they still have a good chance to win. You got more experienced coordinators. Maybe you have a lesser talented roster. James says regress bad. Okay, James, over under 5 wins for the Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, tell me over or under. That's it. That's all you got to type. Over, under. 5 wins. That's your over
I think
under.
win more than 5.
Oh, now you're switching, Sills.
No, I said 7.
You said 7. Angela says 5.
Yeah.
I mean, can we just
I think
look
you're
at
7 and 9.
Let me just pull up real quick.
I think you're 7 and 9.
Dude, come on, Sills.
No, dude, you're looking only on one side of the ball. I'm looking at the whole team.
No, that's not true. I'm not looking at one side of the ball.
You don't have the advantage in that Packer game. You have the advantage in the Falcon game, the Saints game. It's kind of a push in the Bucs game. Bucs are pretty good on defense and pretty good on offense. They're not exceptional, but they didn't have to be exceptional last year to beat you. The Browns have more talent than you on both sides of the ball, and they got better coaching. The Giants alone.
Here we go. Packers.
That's an L.
Okay, so if you have 5 wins, though, you
okay,
gotta
here.
identify.
I don't.
Losses, man. 5 wins. Like, you got the Giants on here twice, the Commanders on here twice. You got the Panthers on here. You got the Jaguars on here. You got the Saints, the Falcons, the Bucs, the Browns. I mean, 5 wins. The Steelers. Yeah. Come on, man. 5 wins.
So here, you're not beating the Packers. You're beating the Falcons.
That's 1 win.
You're beating the Saints.
That's 2 wins.
You're losing to the Bucs.
Okay.
You're losing to the Browns. You're beating the Giants.
That's 3 wins.
You're losing to the Bengals. You're losing to the Jags. You're losing to the Cowboys. You're losing to the Commanders. You're losing to the Rams. You're losing to Baltimore. You're beating the Panthers.
That's 4 wins.
The season's already unraveled here. You're losing to the Steelers. You're going to beat Washington. You're going to beat Dallas.
There's 6.
And you're going to beat the Giants. Like I said, 7 wins.
Holy shit. Sills, if that happens, it's going to be a fun program for a little while.
What game do you think this thing's going to be the turning point of whether it's a success or failure? What game do you think's the tipping game? Because the first 4 are Packers, Falcons, Saints, and Bucs. Do you think that Packer game, how important do you think that game is on how this team looks getting out of the gate? Because I'm with you. Listen, if they don't look that sharp against that team, I'm not going to melt down on that, because if I get down to the Baltimore game and they look the same, then you got a problem. Okay?
Baltimore
Or the
Week
Bengal
13.
game.
They better
Hey,
not look like crap in week 13.
I'll tell you what, that week 8 game against the Bengals, in my opinion, is going to tell you where your season goes.
Wait, which game?
The Bengal game in week 8.
Yeah, come on. You know that. You've been around the NFL long enough to know that one game in the regular season doesn't dictate anything.
Well, if you lose that game, then you got Jags, Cowboys, Commanders, Rams, Baltimore. That's a nice little stretch of ball games. And you got to go to Los Angeles on Sunday night to play the Rams. I mean, you got to go across the country. You got Commanders at home on a Thursday night. Then you got Thursday night ball and then Sunday night ball the following week playing the Rams in L.A.
All right, so we used to have Barrett Brooks on, and everybody keeps wanting us to get Barrett on. Barrett has been axed. They are no longer letting Barrett talk on JAKIB Sports, just so everybody knows that. Barrett still likes us. We still have great conversation with Barrett, but the Eagles have told him that he's no longer allowed on our programs. But anyway, Barrett used to say, I look at games in four games at a time. And I look at 4-game groupings you kind of get your identity after 4 games, and then you can look at them in 4-game groupings. They have that first 4 games: Packers, Falcons, Saints, Bucks. And then the next 4 games are the Browns, Giants, Bengals, and Jags. After those 8 games, you're going to know. You're going to know how good this team is going to be. If they don't look good in any of those first 8 games with the bye week in the middle of it, forget about it. Forget about it. But I think they will. I think they're going to be better than that. I think they're going to win many more games than you're anticipating. The 7-win prediction is just outrageous. It's outrageous.
7, your defense is not good enough. Wait a minute. Let me get this right.
Our defense was the 31st ranked pass defense in the league last year, and they won 11 games.
Hey, and you're going to stop Jordan Love. I can't wait to see Cousins going again. By the way, Cousins versus the 2023 defense versus Cousins versus the 2024 Eagle defense. That's a little different. You got Carr.
But Dan, the defense was catastrophic last year, and they won 11 games.
Well, you were 31st in passing last year.
Yeah.
So let's just put this out there. You don't think a guy in 5 games last year had 18 touchdown passes versus the worst secondary in pro football and now the most inexperienced pro secondary in pro football? How do you think that guy's going to do who just got a $50 million deal? Good or bad?
Good.
Right. Okay. You pay Cousins that money, not because he wins games. You pay him because he threatens you.
He's also how old? 38?
Is he something like that? He could be. Shit, he's made $500 million.
And he's coming off an Achilles. He's 35. He's not 38. 35. 35.
Yeah, 35 with an Achilles is 38.
Exactly. So, I don't know about that one. But listen, the boldest take of your bold takes is that the Eagles are going to win 7 games. Where's Flexen? Flexen just got back in here. Flexen, man. He is not. He's an Eagles fan, but he's not a delusional Eagle fan. He calls it how he sees it. Flexen, how many wins do the Eagles have this year? Let's see what Flexen has to say. How many wins, Flexen, will the Philadelphia Eagles have today? And here's your look at the schedule if you need to look at it one more time. How many wins will the Philadelphia Eagles have?
7-9. 7-9, baby.
Flex.
7-9. That's exactly what Big Sills predicted.
Flex and
7-9.
Barb, what do you got? What does Barb got?
7-9. Yes, sir.
Barb. Sills has turned the tide on the fan. 7-9.
12 wins, Barb. Get them. Where?
Let's go, Barb. Let's go, Barb.
Come on, Yale.
Yeah, showing us got 13.
Otherwise, it's a failure. 11. Xander's got 20 wins or something. I think I heard 13 or some shit.
20
Xander's
wins.
got like 13 wins. I'm like, oh my God.
Historic season, 17-0, and sweep the playoffs for a Super Bowl champion. That's how I got him.
God.
Listen,
Unbelievable. Xander, great stuff, man. I'll tell you what. You know what, though? To be candid, man, I've heard a lot of your guests, Xander, and you're either on one side of the aisle on how well they think they're going to do this year. Some people think they're going to do exceptionally well, and then some people think that they're not. I mean, 7-9 wins. Got to be real.
I mean, we had Zach Berman on, who's doing work for PHLY on YouTube. I'm sure many of you guys see him on YouTube. He was talking about this team like there wasn't a care in the world. There's not a worry coming in. Jalen's going to be an MVP. Devin White's going to be the best linebacker we've had in years. I was listening to him. I'm like, holy shit. Zach Berman has this team like winning the Super Bowl already. But you're right. We have had our fair share of people that are on different sides of the aisle, no doubt.
But I will say this too, Xander, you bring a point up that a lot of people don't factor in. How strong is the NFC to have to maneuver through? It's not the AFC. Some of the best defenses in the NFL are on the AFC side of the ball, not just the best quarterbacks.
Yeah, but that's factored into my projection.
That's why I'm up on Angelo from 5. I got 7. I got 7. I got 7-9, baby.
If we go 7-9,
what an iconic show! Holy shit!
If we go 7-9, Sills. Oh God, I don't even want to think about that.
Okay, don't forget to check out my friend Xander Kraus on Birds 365. Right around the corner, we're gonna have our friend Merrill Reese, the legendary voice of the Philadelphia Eagles. Xander, great stuff, my friend.
Great stuff, Sills. I'll catch you tomorrow, brother.
Depressing. Hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
think I got to show Merrill Reese this. You guys have seen this a couple times. This was at one of Jerome's golf tournaments after he passed. Seth Joyner, Clyde Simmons. Let's see who was there. We all showed up, of course. Here's the donor holes. Clyde Simmons, Seth Joyner, Andre Waters, Keith Jackson. I love Keith Jackson. We played against Keith when he was at OU, Jerome and I. Look at that bad puppy, though. Some of you have seen this. Hey Xander, bring up because he loves golf, and I thought he would love this. This is a whole sponsorship here. Here is our friend Merrill Reese. Merrill, the city of Brooksville said, Sills, we found this in one of the sheds, and we thought you'd like to have this. Some of the guys signed it, Clyde Simmons and Seth.
Well, isn't that something?
Look at that there. Yeah, that's one of the whole sponsorships.
How about that? It's wonderful.
Yep, Brooksville, still to this day. So they go like this. We thought you'd like to have it.
I'd love it. I can't picture Jerome golfing without like whacking down.
Nope. Well, you could if you could use a scooter or if you could use a motorcycle, you could see him doing it with anything with speed. You know what they used to tell me, Merrill?
What?
That Jeff Fisher, who was the defensive line coach, and you know what? The Vets parking lots are so long, the old vet parking lot, right? Jerome would get on his Kawasaki and he would just go up and down those parking lots in lunch break, doing about 130 miles an hour. It used to make the coaches insane when he was doing that. Because I believe Jeff Fisher was your D-line coach then.
No, he was actually the secondary coach.
Okay, he was, yeah. Well, Jeff was like, God, he used to just make everybody nervous.
Jeff was a great guy.
That was a great team.
In fact,
all right.
But there were coaches, Dan, that I looked at then, and I said, they're going to be great head coaches one day. They're going to be successful head coaches. And there are three that I really felt confident would be successful. One was Jeff Fisher. One was John Gruden. I knew they would all be great and successful. And the other was John Harbaugh. And all three of them became great head coaches. But on the other hand, there were other coaches who I thought were terrific coaches, but they weren't head coaches. There's a difference between a great coach, a great teacher, and what it takes to be a head coach.
Were you surprised that Sean McDermott's done well up in Buffalo? Are you shocked that he's doing that well?
No, I'm not, because he's bright, he's diligent, he's tough when he has to be, but overtly, he didn't have that same kind of outgoing personality. But you know what, Dan, it takes a lot of different personalities to win. The most important thing is that a man remain true to himself. For example, you couldn't find two more different people than Andy Reid and Tom Landry. I mean,
two different.
I mean, or Dick Vermeil and Tom Landry. Dick Vermeil, who cried at basketball games, and Tom Landry, who showed zero emotion about anything. But they were both great. Or in that day, Vince Lombardi and Tom Landry. I mean, Vince Lombardi was roaring and tough and loud. Tom Landry could give a player a look, and that was enough.
You know, when I was in Dallas and he brought me to Dallas, I had been coached by Jimmy Johnson when I was in college. And then obviously Jimmy coached me in Dallas the next year. But I had never been around somebody like that was so meticulously organized, but never, ever got there was never highs and lows. I'll tell you who he kind of reminds me of a little bit, and it's Tony Dungy. Like, Tony Dungy never got too high, never got too low. John Lynch told me a story about him, Merrill. They were 0-8 in the Buccaneer locker room the first year, and he was saying that everyone in the locker room was like, holy cow, we haven't won a game. And he walked in the room, and he could see the faces. And Tony Dungy looked at everybody in the locker room. He goes, you know what you guys see? You see 0-8. You know what I see? You're this close. You're this close to your first win and turning this thing around. That's what I see. That to me is the mark of a great coach. You never lose your poise.
Well,
you know?
that's a big thing. That's a big thing. And that's what the great ones have. Look, I think Doug Peterson is a wonderful coach, and I think he's going to show it this year.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Merrill, first day of training camp is tomorrow. 10 a.m. is the first practice. They're reporting now. How many years now is this for you as you prepare for another Eagles season?
It's my 48th season as the play-by-play broadcaster, but I guess you could add 5 years when I went to training camp to do pre- and post-game shows, and 1 year color. So, I mean, probably 52 years or 53 years of going to training camps.
How do you prepare for a season?
By being there, by watching every day, by not taking training camp performances as anything other than what they are, install sessions and practices. I mean, I still cannot believe that we find reporters, written journalists or print journalists, if there is print anymore, or actually broadcast journalists, people who come back and want to tell us that Jalen Hurts was 13 for 16 or 7 for 19 in a training camp practice. It means nothing. None of this means nothing, and they don't hit. We see very little hitting. There are a couple of days in a training camp where they actually have some thud tempo, but very little hitting. So I watch, and I will just mentally call some play-by-play just to get my process going again, and number recognition, particularly with the new players, get that down pat. But I do not take what I see as an indicator of how good this team is going to be. Some people do. I don't.
Merrill, how important is it for you to have a personal relationship with the players that you're going to be broadcasting on? How do you cut that line, and how do you not go too overboard? Because you have to have a balance a little bit when it comes to being critical on the air or constructive, or again, giving their flowers on the air. How do you keep that balance? And do you think it's important to have a personal relationship with the players you're calling?
That's a really good question, Dan, because I don't have the relationship for the most part that I once did. And I don't think any of us do, because we don't have the access that we once had. I mean, for example, practice, not during the training camp, but practice during the training camp, there's no locker room open. There's training camp sessions, and then they bring selected players under the awning, under the tent, to be mass interviewed. So you don't get to know that. And also, don't forget, 40-something years ago, the players and I were the same age. So Cindy and I would have them over, a lot of guys over to the house for dinner. And in those days, before I wore out my knees, I was a pretty high-level tennis player. And there were a few players on every one of the Eagles teams who, in fact, for example, Ken Dunnick, who was a tight end, and Max Runninger were both guys who loved tennis. And they didn't tell anybody, but I would meet them. Don't forget, you would have 2 sessions. You'd have the morning session at training camp in the afternoon, and it was out of Westchester in those days. And we would I'd meet them. I'd pick them up in front of the dorms, and they'd jump in the car, and we'd run, and we'd play tennis for an hour, and then I'd drive them back to camp. And, they'd sneak in a back entrance and get ready to go to the afternoon session. But that's long gone. Now I'm, old enough to be their grandfather. But the fact of the matter is, I still am able to have a great relationship. I mean, 3 weeks ago when they announced that I was going into this year's Hall of Fame class with the Pete Rozelle Award, I got the nicest congratulatory messages from players. Boston Scott, who's with the Rams, wrote, "Bro, I knew you could do it." Alex Singleton, who's now with the Broncos, sent me the nicest words. I mean, I heard from guys all over the country, and I do a radio show once a week, and I get a player as a guest. But it's you do not have the access. But look, I have a wonderful relationship, I'm happy to say, with Jalen Hurts. I can go over to his locker, and the two of us can sit and chat. He feels very comfortable with me, and I really like him. He's a wonderful young man. I think the world of him. But by and large, there are a lot of guys who I know to say hello to, but we don't have the access that once upon a time we did.
Merrill, do you think that your relationship with Mike Quick and how you gel with him has a lot to do with you, first and foremost, covering him as a player, and then as a friend, and then as a broadcast partner? You kind of checked all the three boxes because you would know his quirks. You would know the buttons to and not push. You would know what he was looking at because you covered him as a player. How much do you think that dynamic has helped you in that broadcast team that you have between you and Mike Quick, that you covered all three of those angles?
Well, a couple of things there. Number one, he is one of the guys who I would go over to his locker and chat with when he was a player. And he was always very, very courteous and responsive. But I got to know him so that when they were looking for somebody to fill that role, I was able to be a part of the selection process, and I was in his corner because I liked him and I knew that he could speak well, and I knew the kind of person he is. You used the word quirk. Dan, he doesn't have any quirks.
Okay.
I mean this. If you wanted to meet the most quirkless person, I mean, his emotions run the line, as somebody once said, from A to B. I mean, Mike is never too high, never too low. In 26 years, we've never had a bad word between us. We both have a love for golf, and we do play quite often. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I can hit the ball where he hits it, or that I'm as skilled as he is, but if you put the handicaps down there, we can have a little fun. And also we're friendly. I'm friendly with Mike and his family, and Mike, and Mike calls the house and Cindy answers the phone and he says, "Hi, hun." It's a family. It really is a family. We are during the season, we can finish each other's sentences.
I love that. And that's why that broadcast team is what it is. When like I said to you, I listened all last year, really for the first time each game. And you can see that you guys, I mean, it's almost like a breath. And that's the kind of partner you have. You want to be able to have the other guy finish your thought. You start the thought, he finishes the thought. And that's how you go through those plays. I think that's a great broadcast team.
There are players, and I think you know this. I'm not naming names, but there are a lot of players who go directly from the NFL to the networks over the years. And some make it, and some, after their name wears a little bit thin, are dispensed of. But the ones that make it are the ones who take it as a serious job that requires constant study and dedication. Mike Quick comes prepared with 2 pages of handwritten notes, and so do I. And during the preseason, which people talk about, are you nervous before the Super Bowl? I'm more nervous before a preseason game because you have 90-man rosters to memorize, and also because in the third or fourth quarter of a preseason game, you're going to see a lot of people who are only known to their mothers. I actually write in a column, I actually write topics that I can discuss with Mike Quick when we get to a third or fourth quarter. Now, you don't want a phony excitement. I never go when people say, "Oh, you make a game exciting." No, I don't. Never. I hope I can transmit the excitement of a great play or an exciting game, but I never want to create excitement. That cheapens it. But I do have an obligation as a broadcaster to maintain interest in that broadcast. And that's where that preparation comes in, where Mike and I can get into I remember one time, this is years ago under Andy Reid, we're in the beginning of the third quarter. Mike said, and Mike is always looking at his internet, and he said, I've got some news. I said, hold it a little bit longer because we'll need it. And he goes, all right. And then he says to me, Merrill, you sure you don't want me to break this? In a little while, Mike, it can't be that big. A little while. Finally, I said to him, all right. I said, Mike Quick has something to say. And Mike Quick comes on and he says, well, the Eagles just signed Michael Vick. And I go, whoa, whoa. Why didn't you tell me sooner? But Mike is always right there, and he is meticulously prepared.
I got to tell you, I don't know if I've told you this, but I'm the one that broke it nationally.
Did you?
I was in Tampa, and Tom Shaw was the trainer for Vic, and Tony Dungy came over from Tampa with me, and we went to Orlando. And if you know the story, they gave him his physical in Orlando, and he got his physical, and Andy Reid was actually there because it was a Monday night game that story got broke, because I went on my radio. You can Google it. I'm the first guy nationally, and there was Michael Vick, and I'm sitting there, and I looked over at Tom Shaw, the trainer who was training him. He goes, he just signed with the Eagles. And I'm like, get out. I was so afraid to go on the air. I had it for 4 hours, and I wouldn't go on the air because I was the only guy that knew it. And I'm going like this, Merrill. I go, Andy Reid signed him? Sure enough, I go, okay, I'm going to do it. Because there he was. I saw him signing the contract. Sure enough, that night on Monday Night Football, I forget who was playing. Might have been even a preseason game or something. And I remember John Gruden coming on the air going, yeah, the Eagles have just signed Michael Vick. And I couldn't believe what I had watched, because I saw Reid with him, and I saw the physical, and I saw the whole thing. They got in an airplane and they left. And there I was sitting here. Merrill, I had the story for 4 hours. I knew it at 11, but I didn't say it until later on.
You know, you have to be careful. Now, many, many years ago, a player called me. I was doing the morning sports at WIP along with the games. So I'd get in at 5 o'clock in the morning and go on with the sports at 6:05, 7:05, 8:05, and 9:05. And I got a call at 2:30 in the morning from an Eagles player. And it was in the middle of the off season, into the off season. And the player called me and he said to me, Merrill, I've got news that I'm giving you. He said, I found out firsthand that tomorrow Dick Vermeil is resigning as the Eagles.
Whoa.
And I said, really? And there was no indication of any of this. I said, really? He said, Merrill, I'm telling you the truth. So now I can't sleep. And I go into the station that morning and I said to the news guys, I said, guys, I just got a tip that Dick Vermeil is resigning as head coach of the Eagles today. And they said, Merrill, are you sure? And I had to think, am I the victim of one of the great pranks of all time? But I had trust that this player wouldn't do that to me. And so I said, I'm going with it. They said, okay, you are leading the news. So they came on with the news and came right to me for the lead story, which was that Dick Vermeil was resigning today. And suddenly the news director called, the general manager called, and they said, do you know what you're doing? We're calling the Eagles and they have nothing to say about it. They're not giving us any credence. And everybody in the city was getting reports, and some people were saying that there is an erroneous report on WIP that the Eagles are that Dick Vermeil is resigning as head coach. Don't believe it. And within hours, the Eagles announced a press conference where Dick Vermeil got up and tearfully said that he was burned out.
Man, I know, I'm with you. I mean, that sphincter muscle gets a little tighter when you're the only one in the room. And you're like,
you know,
wait a minute.
Fun. But I believed it, you know? And
yeah, no, because you trusted your source. And like
and
we said,
you
Merrill,
know,
I always tell people the two things that when you're in broadcasting, always be over prepared and never take the stuff people say about you personal. And you're going to go far in this place.
Well, I'll give you another one to that. But do you know who the player was? He later became my color man for 14 years. Stan Walters. Stanley. Okay.
Stanley.
You just said something about over prepared. I have another half of that. Over prepare and under deliver. Over prepare, but don't ever go into a broadcast and say, well, I've prepared it, and even though it's not appropriate at this moment, I'm going to say it anyhow. I don't care if you throw away 2 pages of stuff that you'll never use. Over prepare, under deliver.
Absolutely. Make them want more. Let me ask you a couple questions about going into this year. Why don't you hook me up on this, Merrill? You're the guy that's around these people a lot. Hurts and Nick. Is this overblown that they have a fractured relationship?
Yes. I don't see any fractured relationship at all. You know, Jalen is
it's
not
being reported that these two guys didn't see eye to eye last year when it came to play calling.
Well, does any quarterback and coordinator ever see eye to eye on every play? So it gets blown up. I mean, if you expect them to come marching down the hall singing "Kumbaya," you're not going to have that. But if do they respect each other and do they work well together? You know, and Nick always praises Jalen, and Jalen's not the kind of guy who's going to say, "Hey, this guy is the greatest. That guy's the best." He's just very close to the vest. He's not a big talker. It's just not Jalen.
Do you think that Jalen Hurts has to endorse Nick publicly for that relationship to seem like, because he never has. But you make a point too. I mean, Merrill, you say it. That's not his nature. He's not a guy that's good. He's never said anything like that about Saban. He likes Saban. He loves Saban. He's never said anything about Lincoln Riley or any of them guys.
No, it's not his job. I don't think he has to do anything but win.
Okay, fair enough. Saquon Barkley's impact on this football team, in your opinion, will be great, will be an upgrade to what they've had the last 2 years, or yet to be determined on what his role is?
I think that he will. Now, don't forget, they've had good backs.
Miles Sanders had 1,300 backs. Last year, DeAndre had 1,100.
Yeah.
And both of them were Pro Bowlers.
But the biggest difference is probably that you're talking about a 3-down back who can stay in and catch passes on 3rd down and block and do some more things. My only trepidation about Saquon Barkley, and this is something nobody can answer, is that he has had his share of injuries.
Last 4 years. He's had 2 significant that put him out of missed time. Out of the last 4 years, he's had 2 of those years that made him miss a couple ball games.
If he stays healthy, he'll be sensational. He'll be he's running. He ran well as a Giant, and he's running behind an offensive line that is 6 times as good as what he had with New York. I think he can be sensational. I think he's a great back. But again, I hope he's a great back for at least 15 games.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. 2 last questions here for you, Merrill. Look at what's going on now with Joe Douglas, and I'm sure you probably know who Joe Douglas is, obviously working in the Eagle organization. Yep. I mean, personnel guy. He's done a nice job up in New York when it comes to the draft. But, boy, I'll tell you what, how do you do this? And you got to give it to Howie here. Howie moved off of a guy, and he moved that problem knowing full well he must have known, Merrill, that he wasn't going to show up to Eagle training camp because he wanted between 20 and 27 million. He moved that problem up to New York. He got a potential second, most likely a third, depending on how this thing works out with playing and also playing percentage. But he's moved that problem up to New York now. Now he's holding out, and you're like this with Joe Douglas. Not that that's an Eagle problem, but holy cow, you don't have a contingency plan? You let Huff walk out the building. The Eagles have him. You didn't want to pay Huff. Okay, well, now you're back in that position, boy. So you got to give it to Howie here. He really read the tea leaves right here on Reddick because he wasn't going to do what Javon Hargrave did. Hargrave played his last year on that one-year deal, got that 11 sacks in that $20 million deal in San Francisco. Howie must have known he wasn't going to do that, Reddick.
You know, I have to come clean on this one and tell you that I have a personal feeling in this. Now, I think Howie's terrific. Howie's done a great job. He's one of the great general managers and talent evaluators in the National Football League, and he did what he had to do. However, I also have to tell you that you asked me about getting close with players. Hassan was one of the guys I got very close with over the last 2 seasons. In fact, 2 seasons ago, the year they went to the Super Bowl, I thought he could have easily been a case to be Defensive Player of the Year. That's how good he was.
He was.
He was utilized differently in the defense last year. They had him dropping back in coverage. That's not his thing. He's a pass rusher. But he's one of the best people you'd ever want to meet. And we both are former Temple Owls. So we have that in common. But Hassan is a great guy. He's not a jerk. He will never pull a football team apart. And once he comes to terms with the Jets, he'll go in there and give you everything he has. I don't think he pulled back last year, that he didn't try or any of those things. I think it was more his utilization than his attitude. I think he's a great guy. I really do.
What do you think went south in that relationship? He had 27 sacks, Merrill, in 2 years. You have to go back to Trent Cole and Reggie White to find guys that had that kind of production. I mean, like you said, he destroyed that NFC Championship game. He was the best player on the field on both rosters in that game. I mean, he took 2 quarterbacks out, ended the 49ers shot at winning that game.
Yeah.
And yet, all of a sudden, like you said, he started the season out with a cast on his hand last year, and they utilized him poorly at the last 4, so he still had 11 sacks. But why do you feel, maybe just an opinion from sitting there outside the NovaCare gates, why do you think that relationship went south? Was it just, again, maybe Vic didn't like that he was a one-dimensional guy, maybe that, he didn't like to drop him, and Vic likes to drop those guys?
I don't think it's Vic. I think it was based on last year's performance, and I think it was when you have a salary cap, you have a lot of decisions to make as to how you're going to implement it. And I think that Howie was really in a situation where he was doing what he felt was best for the allocation of what he had to work with for this team. And he thought that in bringing in Huff, that he could replace some of those sacks and still have money to do other things. I mean, they spent a lot of money on Saquon Barkley. I mean, he's put together a very, very talented team. I think it's, Dan, I think going into the season, this doesn't mean they're going the distance, because we also know that that the NFL, and we've said it many times, is a war of attrition. But the fact of the matter is, you also know that to win, you have got to be fortunate. And a lot of things can happen. But Howie has put together one excellent roster.
The only question I have going into this is that in 22, you had immense veterans all the way into defensive tackle position, at the corner position, Epps in the safety. You had Gardner Johnson back there. You had a lot of veterans on that football team. Sayamalo at the right guard spot, a younger Kelsey and a younger Lane. With this situation going here, Merrill, my question is, that offense, there's no doubt, one of the best offenses that I've seen. It's a Pro Bowl offensive football team. You've got a lot of projections on the defensive side. Will Quinton Williams be the right pick? Was it Teron Arnold? What is Cooper DeJean? What is his role going to be? Can Gardner Johnson recoup what he did in 22? The linebacking core. There's a lot. I mean, one thing they haven't done, Merrill, they have not replaced TJ Edwards or Kaiser White. Both of those guys, Kaiser had 120 tackles that 22 season, and TJ had 160. Those two guys were awful productive, and they've still not been able to replace those two guys after 2 years. That's my only concern, is that there's more question marks heading into this year on that side of the ball. There's less on the offensive side, in my opinion. So they've got to get, like you said, they've got to get lucky and stay healthy.
Well,
That's would be mine.
You are right. You know, they're going into camp with about 18 linebackers. And
That's crazy.
There are some interesting names there, one of which is Devin White. I mean, he was a great player at one point, and then injury.
He was an all-pro.
Another guy who has not been healthy, but is extremely bright and was the best linebacker in his senior year in college, was Nakobe Dean. These guys have stepped forward. And I think, now I say this without watching him on this level, and I do love his name, so I'm prejudiced, but I want to see, I think they stole Jeremiah Trotter Jr. in the 5th round. He's not his father. He's not that kind of player. He's faster. He's not as powerful, but he's smart. He's athletic. He may show something. There are a lot of, let's see what they have this year.
Absolutely, no question. Last question for you. This is a personal question for me. Did you enjoy broadcasting the 80s Eagles, the 90s Eagles, the 2010 Eagles, or the current Philadelphia Eagles right now? What era was Merrill Reese, was his favorite era to cover for the Eagles as a broadcaster?
You know, I don't have a favorite era. I love them all. I look forward to the season with the same enthusiasm that I look forward to the 1978 season, which was my first full season as the play-by-play broadcaster. I love all of those eras. But I can tell you, there was no more entertaining era than when we talked about your guy Jerome and Buddy's Boys. That was a soap opera every day. That was at times a comedy thing. I mean, it was Jerome arriving with 6 minutes to go before he was declared late for training camp, when all of a sudden you heard this rumbling, and it was Jerome driving a blue Ford Bronco with a boombox blowing out the windows, and he drives in, and there's all these mothers and kids on the lawn, and he jumps out of his truck and he yells "Blank Westchester" and runs into the lawn, runs into the dorm. I mean, there was something going. Reggie White every day. These were characters. And Buddy, you never knew what Buddy was going to say. When the media came to Buddy at training camp and said, "Well, Buddy, is everything going as well as you would expect?" He'd say, "No." He said, maybe we'd sign somebody if the guy from France would come back. He was talking about Norman Brayman, the owner, who was vacationing. You never knew what he was going to do. So these are more corporate type, less off the cuff, less wild errors, but you still meet a lot of wonderful players, a lot of talented coaches. They're all great. I'll tell you this.
Hopefully we're able to get him back. I want to hear him finish that thought. Can you imagine having Buddy Ryan and Bill Parcells game week, Eagles and Giants, with those two guys at press conferences? Can you imagine what those press conferences were like pre-week of the game on Sunday with the Giants? Now, this is my era. So those two guys were probably those two guys. I got to hear Merrill finish.
Am I back?
Yeah, go ahead, Merrill. Finish it up. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that this team has the ability to go the distance. Do they lack something in the secondary? I don't know. I think those two, I think what they did was take a look and say our biggest weakness is defensive secondary, and they picked two of the best people they could possibly get in the draft in Quinn Jones-Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. I think you've got real talent there. And they went out and they brought back, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. That's big. Again, if he stays healthy, because he had his injuries too. And we talked about the young linebackers, and a lot of things that, listen, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, these are guys who are enormously talented, but they can't be talented and destructive for 8 games and then whittle away because they're not in the right condition. These are guys who've got to show that they can do what they do early in the season over the course of 17 weeks.
Merrill, I can't imagine what that was like for you when you were calling games or you were preparing that week of the Giants, when you had Parcells on one side and then you had Buddy on the other side, and you had these two guys doing their press conferences and the stuff that was said between those two teams. Because when I grew up, the rivalry wasn't Cowboys and Eagles. It was Eagles and Giants.
Yeah, but
that was for me, the rivalry. I never looked at the Cowboys as your biggest rival. I always thought it was the Giants because it went back to the Bednarik and Sam Huff days and that stuff. So that's how I kind of looked at it. I know the Cowboys are the rival, but I grew up with Bednarik and Huff. That was my rivalry.
Yeah, I did too. But in those days, let me tell you something. That Bednarik and Huff were two different eras, actually. Bednarik was done by after 1960. That was it for Chuck, and Chuck won championships in 1949 and 1960. But when you go back, you have to look at Buddy and Jimmy Johnson. Oh my goodness, those two! You talk about two guys who hated each other, or even Buddy and Landry. I mean, they were unbelievable. They were great.
Merrill, I got to show you a picture of Buddy Ryan at our practices down at the University of Miami. What when you say about Jimmy Johnson, and you're like, what I never got was why Buddy and Jimmy ended up being these rivals. Because here, I got to show you this picture here. Here it is. So here's Buddy coming down to our practice. There's Jimmy. Okay. And those are our dorm rooms in the back. And we're sitting here. And here's Buddy Ryan. This was 1986, the first year that Buddy got the job. He came down. Norman Brayman's there because Norman had his Cadillac dealership in South Florida, right? And so Norman, I'm going to tell you how we knew Jerome was going to the Eagles. So Norman is here, Buddy's here, Jimmy's here, Butch Davis, Dave Wannstedt, myself, and Danny Stubbs, who ended up being an Eagle himself. We're all in the room. Buddy goes, "Let's go." First year he got the job from Chicago Bears when he came over from D.C. We're with him for 2 hours watching the 46 defense. He goes, "Sileo, get your head out of your ass. See that right there? See that technique? You got to slide your hands over to the left. What is that? That's laziness because what? You're strong? You get in the NFL, God put you on your back." Jerome Brown, you keep taking plays off. This is why you won't be the 6th pick in the draft, which he ended up being the 9th pick. And then he goes, and he's sitting in here ripping us a new one. He turns off and he looks at both of us, all three of us, and goes, "Hey, you three guys, you Stubbs and Jerome, you guys are going to have the number 1 defense." And we did that year in college football. You guys are the best I've seen. It's phenomenal. He came down in 87 and did that too. And I'll never forget, he put his arm around Jerome. This is 86. The following year in the draft, Jerome went to the Eagles. He goes like this: "If I have anything to do with it," right in front of the whole team, "you're going to be a Philadelphia Eagle." And this was before he did the salute in the Fiesta Bowl. And Jerome looked over at me and I go, "Damn, dude, the guy who ran the 46 in Chicago, I don't know what kind of head coach he's going to be. But I'll tell you what, that defense in Chicago is the best I've ever seen. And he wants you." And he hadn't even seen him play his final year. We knew right there. Norman Brayman goes like this. He looked over at Jimmy and he goes, "If I have anything to do with it, you're going to be in a number 1 pick." Turned out to be the 9th pick.
Do you remember who his very first draft pick was as head coach?
No. Wait, 86. Don't tell me it was Mike Mamul. No, that was later.
That was Ray Rhodes.
Oh, who would they pick? Was it that running back from A&M?
No.
Who was it?
He went on his radio show the night before the draft and declared that he wouldn't get anywhere near Keith Byers because he was a medical reject, and then drafted him first the next day.
What a dear friend of mine, and what a player. And I'll say this to you about, he was Alvin Kamara before Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
Here's a guy that could get you 700-800 yards, Merrill, and then turn around and get you another 450 yards receiving and be that dual threat guy like that. He was so far ahead. If the Eagles of that era ever decided to do that one trade for that offensive tackle, I know some of them know that Mike Lachey, actually Keith Byers and
Jim
Keith Jackson,
Ohio State,
and a bunch of people had worked that deal out to get Lachey. Lachey wanted to be an Eagle, not a Washington Redskin.
But you know what? Their scouts told them that Jim Lachey couldn't play tackle, that he was strictly a guard. So Marion Campbell said, get me the best tackle you can get me. And Lynn Stiles, who was the personnel director, said, well, the best offensive lineman is Jim Lachey from Ohio State. And Marion said, I said tackle. He said, well, there's a tackle on the board by the name of Kevin Allen from Indiana, and that's who they picked. That's who they picked, Kevin Allen from Indiana. And he not only was a bust, he got into some police trouble and ended up with some real problems after that. I think he was basically a good kid and straightened himself out, but he was never anything other than a marginal football player. Also in that draft, who they didn't take, where they picked Kevin Allen ahead of Jerry Rice, ahead of Al Toon, ahead of Jim Lachey, ahead of Eddie Brown. The list goes on and on.
One last thing, Merrill. I could talk to you forever and apologize, but Kevin Allen was a teammate of mine when I played in the World League. Soft-spoken, nice kid.
Yeah.
And he goes like this. And as you know, it was a sexual misconduct thing that ended up taking him down. He wasn't a really good – he came out of Indiana, and obviously he wasn't the player. Enormous. You talk about enormous dude. He is an enormous man. And I asked him, I said, so did all that stuff go down with that one girl? And he's like, well, it was a very unfortunate circumstance and all this and that. And I'm like, okay. And I said, he goes, but man, I don't hold anything against the Eagles. It was my fault. You know, there were just misunderstandings. He goes, but I didn't perform and I wasn't ready to play for those guys. And I really felt bad for him because he went on to play a little bit more in the NFL after the World League. But he's a good guy.
Oh,
it's just an unfortunate situation.
Man, but Buddy came in with like a tornado, and he brought them down to Tampa for a mini camp in the spring. And he looked at the players for the first time, and he turned to Michael Haddix, who was also a first-round draft pick. And the first thing Michael Haddix ever heard Buddy say was, "You look like some darn USFL guard." That's he was a running back. So, but words.
You look like some USFL running offensive guard. Michael, yeah, like you said, I remember Michael Haddix. He was a running back out of Texas A&M. I remember that.
Oh my gosh! There's someone else who was trying to make the team, and I said to him, because Buddy and I really took a little while, but we had a great relationship. And I said,
he your favorite coach?
He's the greatest character. My favorite coach is. I just had dinner with Vermeil, but there's a lot of coaches that I love. There a lot. I've been lucky with great coaches. The only one I didn't have any relationship was Chip. But the thing about it was, I said to Buddy about one of the players. I said, Buddy, he is a great kid, and Buddy said, so is my son, but I don't want him playing for me.
Hey. I got to tell you what Jaw said to me about Vermeil. He goes, Vermeil's the only guy that could cry making you run for 3 hours.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. Keep that running going for 3 hours. We got another 2.5 hour practice, full pads.
Yeah,
but Draws is like this. He's like, I've never seen a guy so emotional and love his players so much, but yet beat these guys into submission. He used to cry over making them run.
Yeah, but you know what? The thing about Dick was, to this day, all of his players are still in touch with him.
Yeah.
I mean, he hears about a guy having a tough time. He's on the phone to him. He's visited him. He really has cared. No coach ever cared more about his players as people than Dick Vermeil. He may have worked them to death, but I'll tell you what, he really cared about them.
You know what, though, Merrill, every time you call the house, though, I got a feeling that the true coach in that house is the wife, because she's the one that goes like this. It's Dan. And so, like, you know, Coach Vermeil goes, "How you doing, Dan?" Because I met him when he was a broadcaster. You know, he ended up becoming a broadcaster after he left the game for a bit. So I got a chance to know and meet him. And that's how we became friends and such. And it's his wife. His wife is a major force in his life.
Great. Carol's great. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I can't. Hey, by the way, the Hall of Fame stuff. Are you going to be going to the Hall of Fame game? Are you going to be up there during that week?
I am going to. I'm pretty. We have tickets to go to the game. I hope so. We're going to leave next Thursday morning.
So are you going to be brought out to the middle of the field with the players?
I don't know that. I don't know what I'm going to do, but that I know that my first official duty is at the Gold Jacket dinner, and they'll introduce me as the winner of the Pete Rozelle Award, and they'll have a video with some of my calls, and then I get up and I speak for a few minutes.
You better get a jacket or at least a ring out of this.
Do you know what, Dan? They could put Hall of Fame on a Dixie cup, and I would be appreciative.
Merrill gets his new ring out of a Cracker Jacks box. It's fine with me.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's the fact that I'm being included into this unbelievable fraternity that means everything to me. Any tangible evidence of it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for spending so much time. I look forward to the upcoming season number 48 as the official broadcaster, 52 around the organization, which is incredible. And now an inductee of the Pete Rozelle Award.
And you know what? I love it as much as I've ever loved it. And when people say, "How long do you want to do it?" my answer is forever. So
you want to use this thing kind of like a Supreme Court nomination where this is, hey, Merrill, this is a lifetime gig for you, right?
Right. I'm going to come on this year and say, "Hello, everybody. This is Chief Justice Merrill Reese."
We're coming to you live from Baltimore, not that crap hole in Washington, D.C. This is Chief Justice Merrill Reese for my 48th season.
That's it. Oh, my goodness.
Absolutely. Merrill, thank you so much. Hit them straight, my friend. I appreciate it.
I will, Dan. Thank you, and have a great day.
You got it. Our good friend Merrill Reese, the legendary voice of the Philadelphia Eagles, spending a boatload of time with us today. Hit the like button. I hope you liked that. I sure did. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Big Sills National Football Show. Please hit the like button. I just got the latest on Hassan Reddick. By the way, Eagle fans, this is for you. Love this. Awesome. Thank you, Big Marshall. Sills is a legend at the U. That'd be correct. And I say that with all humility. Not really, but hey, all good. Hey, I can't believe that Brandon Graham has played more games than Chuck Bednarik on defense than any other Eagle in history. That's pretty good. That's absolutely outstanding. You guys want to hear the latest on Hassan Reddick? I just got this from Boomer Esiason. Would you guys like to hear the latest on Reddick and where and why they are in the position? It's got a little bit of Philadelphia Eagle in it too. Dade County, all about the U, baby. DRC, you bet, man. Dade County, baby. Love the 305. Just tell us, Sills. Damn, says Flexen. Flexen, you got no patience, man. Did ever Sills get drafted or no? Yeah. I was the 56th player taken. Yeah, Philly. And your quarterback was the 54th. How you doing? Was Sills ever drafted? Yeah. I was taking 56. How you doing? Okay. It's a joy messing with you. Flexing. Oh, how dare you try to get under Big Sills' skin? Okay. How dare you? Right? Hassan News, please. I'm getting there. Stu. Okay. Sue. Wait a minute. Okay. No, let me read this first. I'll show my tape a little bit later. All right, here we go. So, the New York Jets made Hassan Reddick a contract offer before the trade from Philadelphia. It would have been a raise from the $14.5 million he was scheduled to make this year. Reddick declined the offer. So the Jets did offer him. The Jets said if he wanted more, 25 to 28 annually, they needed to see him perform first. In the meantime, the Jets would adjust his current deal. So Hassan Reddick, it seems, according to the Jets, has reneged on his promise. So here, follow me again. Let's start at the top here. Jets made Reddick an offer, prior to the Eagles trade, it would have given him the raise from $14.5 million he was scheduled to make this year and is currently right now his contract. Reddick said no. The Jets said if he wanted more, 25 to 28 annually, they had to see him perform first. Maybe mid-season, they would come to him with a new contract. In the meantime, here's an important part of this. The Jets would adjust his current contract and convert non-GTD to GDT incentives, which that means this. You're more likely to make these incentives with player rosters and those roster bonuses, and they were going to put those roster bonuses as money that was going to be part of a sign-in bonus. So instead of saying this on a roster bonus, well, you're going to get $2 million for showing up to training camp. You know, some people get, if you play your first preseason game, you get an additional $400,000. Or if you're on the active roster for the opening game against Green Bay, you automatically get $2 million for a roster bonus. It's all kinds of ways because the incentives help you out in your salary cap. So the Jets were willing to convert that money to guaranteed money. Reddick still said no to that. Actually, let me take that back. Reddick told the Jets he was on board with this. Okay? He was on board with this. How will his samurai skills translate on the field? Wow! I do not know, grasshopper. So Reddick told the Jets so the Jets went to him and said, all right, here's a contract offer, an extension offer. So they did offer him an extension. He said no. They came back to him and said, well, why don't we turn some of those incentives, like roster bonuses and such, and turn it into guaranteed money? He said, and what Boomer's saying, Reddick told the Jets he was on board with this. He would show up for the offseason program, minicamp and training camp. He'd perform well early season, leading an in-season extension similar to John Franklin Myers in 2021. So they were rolling towards, as they got to the midway point of the year, that they were going to give him a 3-year contract extension if he had performed. Reddick then skipped the OTAs, minicamp, and training camp, and the Jets are not willing to negotiate anything until he shows up. The Jets do not know when he plans to come back. He will be fined every day for his absence. This is crazy. Again, think about this. The Jets offered him a contract before the Eagles sent him because they wanted to have a contract in place, just like the A.J. Brown deal when the Eagles gave A.J. a 3-year contract. Xander, I think what you said about, like, when you were saying about A.J. got traded to the Eagles and there was a brand new 3-year deal set up, right? It was right there on draft night. They cut a deal with him. $100 million, right? Well, the Jets were willing to make a deal for him, but Reddick said no. Then again, he wanted between 25 and 28 million, and the Jets were not willing to go up that high. They wanted to see him play. That would lead to an in-season contract extension. So, at the end of the day here, Hassan Reddick reneged on the contract conversation that he was having with the Jets. And that's why the Jets are now in a position where we're not negotiating anything until you show up to camp. Reddick wants a deal before he shows up, and the Eagles or the Jets don't want to do it. So that's kind of where they are right now. I mean, you talk about a bad situation. So there's no question. You have to play this out in Philly. He would have done the same thing here. He would not have shown up. They would have had to have given him a contract. It would have been more distraction on a football team that doesn't need distraction. However, I sure like to have had Hassan Reddick and Bryce Huff. I'd feel a lot more comfortable with getting pressure on the quarterback if Reddick was on that football team. I mean, him not being on that football team and projecting a backup to be the guy to take the place for him is awful lofty. Here's a guy with 51 sacks in the last 4 years. You're not getting that production like that. I know John McMullen's high on him, but dude, there's only 2 players that have had 4 years in a row of double-digit sacks. Myles Garrett and Reddick. There's very few people in the building like this. Okay? Riddick should have taken a deal at his age. You take that risk, have 7 sacks by week 8, get the extension. I'm with you, Forrest. Plus, you're on a better football team. Wait, you're not on a better football team than the Eagles. You're on a better defensive football team than the Eagles. So I would have took it too. Look at what you have. You got that Quinyon Mitchell, what's his name? Quinyon Williams sitting in the middle there. Okay. You got a pretty good linebacker that's playing next to you. You got Sauce Gardner back there and the other guy, what's his name? Reed, the other corner. They got maybe the best cover corners in the league playing in New York. You got a pretty good coach that knows what he's doing, and Robert Saleh on the defensive side of the ball. If I'm Hassan Reddick, how are you not wanting to be on that unit where you could potentially get 18, 19 sacks and be one of the premier guys in the league? And get this, if you have 9 sacks by midway point, you think the Jets are going to give you $25 million? I do. I do. I think his age plays a factor in it being a limited. I don't have a problem paying Hassan Reddick $25 million. For 5 years, I'm not. For 2.5 or 2 and an option, I would. But it would be a short-term deal. I don't want to get and hold the bag at the back end of a contract, of a 5-year contract. This guy's getting me 2 sacks. I don't want that. So I would go 2 years at 25. And I feel comfortable with that. He's been productive. Okay? Reddick has a solid 3 to 5 years left. You know what, though, Forrest? I think that Reddick has 3 to 5 years left, depending on who's on the defense and who he has around him. If he's got really good – the Jets have really good defensive players on that team. You should be bending over backwards to get in that lineup. Being around all that, that's one of the better units in the league. Yell, he probably does. The agent would definitely want 3 years, minimum. And remember something too, Yale. If you go 2 years, that means the agent's going to want $28 million. You know, you get $25 million if you give me a 4-year deal or a 3-year minimum deal. If you're going 2 years, well, you're going to go 28. You got to compensate for the other years that you're not giving on the contract, because the agent's going to feel like him and the player are being shortchanged, because that's not market value. So that's why it would cost you. Good point. On a solid defense where other players help you excel, you could match Huss production of 10 to 15 sacks. Dude, I think Hassan Reddick on that defense would look like he was in 22, where he just skyrocketed off and had that great year. I mean, Yale, their front four is by far better, in my opinion, than what the Eagles have, because I think the Eagles are weak at the perimeter, at the pass rushers. I think Huff is a weak run defender, and I think they're really good in the middle. But I think with Quinnen Williams, and then when you have Hassan Reddick rushing the passer, I still think New York Giants probably have the best front four in New York because of Burns and Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. That's probably the best front in the NFC East as well. So, I mean, the Giants have a really good front four, especially when you have Pro Bowlers littered everywhere. I mean, Brian Burns is a heck of a football player. He's been a heck of a football player the last couple of years. Eagles defense is a mystery. That's correct. And that's been kind of like my takeaway this offseason. You know, I get people going like this, and I hear you guys, and I understand it. Sills, why are you negative? I'm not negative. I'm pointing. Hey, if pointing out my concerns means negativity, I think that's a you thing. Here's my overall synopsis of your roster right now as you head into camp today. I think you have a limited quarterback who has potential. I like the player. I like the kid. I think at times he shows immaturity as a leader. I think he has tremendous athleticism. I think his teammates like him. The community likes him. He's a hard worker. I think that style of play is not conducive to being consistent on a year-to-year basis. So I think there's a lot of things. Again, the reading of the defenses is going to come. I think he'll be better at it probably in 2 years. Could be way better in 2 years. Brady says you can consistently get better at that. Again, I think there's a lot of growing. I think he's got to concern himself with his health. Jalen Hurts can't win a Super Bowl without his legs. Okay? Sills, you think critically, it's all good. I would say this. Hurts can't win that Super Bowl, and he was not ever going to be an MVP candidate again unless he uses his legs. He uses his legs, you get an opportunity. Okay? Philly says, it saddens me to see that Sills, you seem like a great guy, definitely had talent. Would have loved to seen highlights of you being great in the NFL. Well, if I almost wouldn't have died, Philly, and had my last rites read to me, maybe things would have went that way for me. Maybe they would have. It just wasn't meant to be. It just wasn't meant to be. When a priest gives you your last rites, I was more worried about living than I was playing in the league at the time. So, hey, some things were just not meant to be. Do you think more ads, more RPO? No, I don't. No, I don't think that. Hey, Philly, all good, bro. You're just finding out about me, and I'm finding out about you. Okay? It's all good. No, I don't think they're going to add the RPO. I think the reason, hey, a bite of life, one of the things that I think that they brought Saquon Barkley in is to cover for the RPO loss. You bring Barkley in, you're not going to have Hurts carry the ball, are you? I mean, you're trying to take the hits away from Jalen. And maybe the limited running creates more of a priority in the kind of plays that he's going to run. Okay? So I do think there'll be something in there that'll resemble that. I also want to throw this out. I threw out to you my best and my top 10 NFL players. I'm going to do my top 5 Philadelphia Eagles. Give me your top 5 Philadelphia Eagle players as we go into training camp. Your top 5 NFL Eagle players. Drew Brees wasn't the biggest quarterback or had the strongest arm, but his IQ was high. Jalen's IQ is still a work in progress. He's come a long way from Alabama. He needs consistent coaching, which you'll never get, Forrest. You've never had consistent coaching in Philly. He's never had it but one time. Year and a half with Shane. Hey, Forrest, you just think that's a coincidence? The guy with the longest time with Hurts had the most success with Hurts? Why wouldn't the Eagles see that? Leave a guy in place. Leave a guy in place. Chris Long said it perfectly. The problem in developing a Jalen Hurts is Sirianni. You need a play-calling head coach so that relationship, like Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love, or any of these play-calling guys that you have, Sean McVay and Stafford. Matthew Stafford was horse shit in Detroit. Losing record in the playoffs. He couldn't do anything with Megatron. You give him Sean McVay, turn his career around. You think Brock Purdy is going to be the player he is without Kyle Shanahan? Brock Purdy looks to me a little bit better of a version of Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, right? I feel like Jalen can improve as a pocket passer and will not have to rely on his legs as much, but his legs are part of his game. So he's always going to run, but he can't become a 30, but he can become a 30-plus passing touchdown guy. He's never got over 24 touchdown passes. Shit, last year, some of these rookie guys, C.J. Stroud threw for 26. He's thrown for more touchdowns in 1 year than Hurts has done in his 2 years, 3 years starting. Jalen, I think, had 16, 22, and then 23. That's not a prolific passer. And when you have a running quarterback, you're never going to – running quarterbacks aren't consistent players. Cam Newton wasn't. Vic wasn't. If you didn't have a really good arm, if you think about it, okay, those guys don't have consistent years. Not even Russell Wilson. He had 2 years, and after that, they took Marshawn Lynch away. It was over. He never really saw the NFC title game again. They were getting beat in postseason play. I mean, he was never the same when Lynch left that team. Once Marshawn Lynch left, it was over. Then it was like, Russell Wilson just became a dude. And then he stopped taking the ball and running with it. And once he took his legs away, he was never the same player as he was early in his career. That's what happened with Russell Wilson, was the absence of Marshawn Lynch. And to me, taking the run game away from Hurts kills that. And I think that's one of the other reasons why they brought in Saquon. They upgraded the run game, they feel, okay? They upgraded the run game with Barkley. They feel that that's got to help his passing and help him as a passer. It just blows my mind now as we go into camp here. Instead of working on the things he does great, they're working on the things he doesn't do great. And I get that, and it's important to do that. But that's not going to win you games. I think you have to have things that you work on more so than the things you work on that are bad. Continue to get better at what you do best. In the NFL, you take plays away you can't and don't perform well at. You don't continually keep practicing them. People are saying, well, that's what they're working on now. So you're working on failure. And if you're working on him reading defenses, that's 2 years away. That's 2025. You want to win now. Work on the shit. Dude, you should be working on things that beat Green Bay. Okay? Forrest says that's it. Don't make Jalen a passing quarterback. Just change up some things around him that make him better. Forrest, make him a winner again. Don't make him a passer. Jalen was a winner in 22. He wasn't a passer. Jalen in 23 was a passer. What looked better? How about this? I heard Bill Colarulo saying that Jalen wasn't awful last year. He was okay. Okay. Well, one, okay is not going to cut it. Secondly, last year he was okay, had better numbers, right? 22, he was spectacular. He had lesser numbers. How's that possible? He had even lesser numbers across the board. Attempts, completions, yards, touchdown passes. You know why? They were quality plays. His yardage meant a lot that year. And let's not forget something. What was the most important dynamic in that whole relationship that you had in 22 with that offense? You had a guy with 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. You had another guy with 850 and 13 touchdowns on the ground. You had 24 touchdowns and 2,100 rushing yards between two men. And 24 touchdowns. And the guy's throwing for 3,600, 3,700 yards. That's a big deal, dude. $2,000 running between two guys and between three guys passing. There was 3,700 yards of passing yards. How do you defend that? We are Derrick Henry. We are Derrick Henry beat the last of the great backs in which running back takes the torch from Derrick Henry. Which running back takes the torch from Derrick Henry? It's a different league, Disciple. It's a whole different dynamic. The best running back in the game right now is McCaffrey. But is he Derrick Henry? No. He's really more like a Keith Byers kind of guy. But what makes that guy stupid great, he's a 1,000-yard rusher, led the NFL in rushing, I believe. He's a 1,000-yard receiver. This guy gets like 75 receiving. How many catches did he have last year? Did McCaffrey have 90 catches last year? Lamar's 2023 as MVP with 37 and 24, 7 picks. Only had 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns. And that's why I thought that they were going to be, Forrest, for the first time, a true Super Bowl contender. You can't throw the ball against Patrick Mahomes 37 times. And when you ask him to throw the ball 37 times, I think that's what really cost him that AFC title game against Mahomes. You're not going to get in a back and forth and beat him. He's just not. He's too good. The coaching staff's too good. Will Derrick Henry be the last of the great backs who would take the torch to become the next great back? In today's NFL, I think maybe he's the last of the dying breed. I mean, I can't think of another power back that I would look at and go, there's a guy that's going to get 1,600 yards. Today's NFL is not going to give – you're not going to see a back get the ball 28 times in a game any longer. Disciple, those days are gone. They want Arena Football League stuff. They want 50 attempts, not 28 rushing attempts. That's not what they're looking at here. Jack says Lamar's a fraud. Sorry, but it's true. Lamar's a fraud. And he's won 2 MVP awards by the time he's 26. And he's never thrown for over 3,800 yards. And he won 14 games last year, and he had AFC. If Baltimore was in the NFC, they would have had an undefeated season. He's a fraud. He's 2-4. Name me a quarterback that's got a winning record outside of Mahomes and Joe Burrow. That's a starter right now in the league. Name me one. Can you? Name me one quarterback that's playing in today's NFL. Brock Purdy? Yep. 5-2, 4-2, whatever it is. So there's one. Brock Purdy. Who else? Really, I can only name you 3. Mahomes, Purdy. No, Goff is 4-4. Jared Goff's 4-4. Name me a quarterback in today's NFL that's over 500 in the postseason. Name me one. Mahomes, Purdy, and Burrow. The rest of them don't. Including your guy. Good call, Senor. Rodgers, I think Rodgers is 11-10. Something like that. He might be 11-10. I forgot about him. Okay, I forgot about him. You might check Russell Wilson too. Wilson might be 9-7 in the postseason because Wilson might be 9-7. So Wilson, yeah, I said Burrow. No, Jalen's 2-3. I believe Jalen's 2-3. Lost the Super Bowl. Lost to Brady. And lost to the Bucks. So he's 2-3 in the postseason. Dude, it's impossible, Sills. Of course. Dude, it's impossible, Sills. Of course there's none. That's the point. Right. So when you say that Lamar's overrated, so is everybody else? That's right, because we lost last year. Yeah, I think Jalen's 2-3. A lot of young quarterbacks now. That's why Senor, I think we're in probably one of the greatest eras of quarterback talent that I've ever seen. Flacco's not a starter. Russell Wilson's 9-7. Okay, that sounds right. Wilson's 9-7 in the postseason. Think about this. That's what Sean Payton's record is. He's 9-7 too, because I believe that's what Breeze was. I think like 9-7. So you got Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes. You got 4 quarterbacks out of 32 starting quarterbacks that have postseason records 500 or better, or over 500. Everyone assumes that, well, you know, you're gauged by what, like Dak Prescott gets heat for being 2-4. Well, or 2-5. Well, name me another guy who's doing better than him. Who's doing better than him? Brock Purdy? So you got to temper those comments when you say that. You know what I mean? I mean, look at I think CJ Stroud's 1-1. I think Jordan Love's 1-1. That's a great start to a career. Dude, Brock Purdy's 4 or 5-2 or some shit like that. That's pretty amazing. But he's got the talent around him and he utilizes it. He's gotten to a Super Bowl. He's got the 2 straight NFC title games. He's coached exceptionally well. He takes to coaching. I think it had a lot to do with him starting 3 years at Iowa State. I think that helped him a ton. You know, I think he had one voice in his ear at Iowa State. I mean, one thing you give about, you know, people forget about Purdy. Purdy started 3 years and had a ton of starts when he was in college. Had a lot. Okay? Senor goes, Brock Purdy getting $60 million per year. Well, I'll tell you this, Senor, the day that Brock Purdy gets $60 million, Deebo Samuel will not be on that 49er team. And maybe Javon Hargrave will be cut too. Okay? Maybe, you know, that they're going to have to start paying them. And $60 million, if you gave Trevor Lawrence $60 million, now again, the 49ers may say this, well, isn't he just another Jimmy Garoppolo? How do you know that he's not? Hey, here, do you think Brock Purdy could go to the Raiders and turn the Raiders into a championship team? Senor, you think Purdy could go to Las Vegas and win 14 games in Las Vegas? I'm not sure. I don't think. I don't think he can. Right. So then if I'm not going to, I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence will look pretty good in Vegas. But do I think he could win a Super Bowl? No, but I think he's a better quarterback. Talent. Hey, Trevor Lawrence in San Francisco's offensive huddle. I don't know. See, Jalen Hurts in the 49er offense, he'd look like he would in Philly. He's got the same talent in Philly. That's why Purdy, to Xander's point, Purdy spreads the ball around better. Jalen's a better athlete. But if you took Purdy and put him in the offense in Philly, it would look like him in San Francisco. And if you took Jalen and put him in the offense in San Francisco, he'd look like he was in Philly. You can interchange one guy, Purdy. Hurts is going to be the same guy because he's got the same talent. I mean, San Francisco doesn't have any better offensive talent than the Eagles do. Eagles may have better and a better O-line. Kyle Shanahan develops a better playbook. I agree, Senor. He does. He puts a better playbook. All right. Guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Tell you this here to make you feel better about yourself. Jacoby Brissett is the number 1 quarterback heading into training camp in New England. I mean, hey, I like the player. I've always liked Jacoby. But you just drafted a guy 3rd overall. And they said he's 3rd on the depth chart. Oh. Dude, you're 3rd on the depth chart for a new coach. Okay? Jared Mayo is brand new in New England. You made this splash so that you could go and get a quarterback, and you draft a guy, and heading into training camp, get this, he was in pajamas and couldn't look good. In pajamas heading into training camp. I mean, it's set up for you to look good. And he couldn't do it. And the guys in New England are all going like this. Yeah, it's not really close even. So, hey, you can have all your issues that you have with Nick and Jalen and all, but I'd rather be the Eagles than the New England Patriots rolling into a camp going, holy shit. Yeah, Drake May is the 3rd team quarterback in New England. All righty. Hey, man, I appreciate everybody coming aboard today. Thank you so much. Merrill Reese was great. Please go back and listen to that thing. I mean, he must have stayed on with us for over an hour and a half. He was fantastic. So we so appreciate the legendary voice. Tomorrow, first day of practice, 10 a.m. for the Eagles. Don't forget, too, a little programming note there with Xander and them because John's going to be out there. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're going to be following our show tomorrow. Xander's going to be in the morning, though, doing some work, so be prepared for that. So you'll get a little taste, 30-minute taste of that early tomorrow and then late tomorrow because John will be at training camp tomorrow. And you'll get the skinny from a bird's eye view of John being out there. Great stuff. See you tomorrow. God bless all of you. 2 to 6 tomorrow. Xander, Big Joe. See you on the flip side.